Amelia did not remember the exact day her childhood ended, but she often said it must have been the day they buried her father. She was only 10. The village of Kasinga was quiet that morning, too quiet for a place that usually woke up with roosters, laughter, and the sound of women sweeping their compounds. On that day, even the wind seemed to move slowly, as if it too understood that something heavy had settled over the small home of Madame Judith. Madame Judith stood strong through it all. She didn't cry in public. She didn't fall. She held her children close, Amelia, the eldest, then Cindy, Caleb, Charity, and little Calvin, and spoke in a voice that did not shake. "We will be fine," she said. But Amelia saw the truth in her mother's eyes that night, when everyone else had fallen asleep. They would not be fine, not easily. Life after that changed in ways no one announced. School fees became a conversation whispered in corners. Meals became smaller. Laughter came less often. Amelia, who once loved sitting in class and answering questions faster than anyone else, began missing days, then weeks. Until one morning, Madame Judith called her aside. There was no long speech. "Stay home for now," she said gently. "Let your younger ones continue." Amelia nodded. She didn't argue. She understood. That was the day she quietly stepped out of childhood and into responsibility. She helped neighbors fetch water. She worked in gardens under the hot sun. She carried loads of cassava to the trading center for a few coins. Sometimes she sold vegetables by the roadside, calling out to passing strangers with a voice that tried to sound older than she was. Every coin she earned, she brought home. Madame Judith never asked her to do it, but she never stopped her either. Instead, she would hold Amelia's hands at night and say, "You are strong, my daughter." And Amelia would smile, even when her body ached. Her siblings looked up to her in ways they didn't always say. Cindy followed her everywhere, trying to copy everything she did. Caleb tried to act like a man, even though he was still just a boy. Charity clung to her whenever she felt afraid, and Calvin, too young to understand everything, only knew that when Amelia was around, things felt safe. Amelia became more than a sister. She became a second mother. But there were moments, quiet, hidden moments, when she allowed herself to feel the weight of it all. Sometimes she would pass by the school and hear the children reciting lessons in unison. She would slow down, just for a second, listening. Her fingers would tighten around whatever she was carrying. Then she would walk on, because life did not wait for dreams. One evening, after a particularly long day in the fields, Amelia returned home exhausted. The sky was painted orange and smoke from cooking fires curled gently into the air. She found Madame Judith sitting outside, staring into the distance. For a while, neither of them spoke. Then Amelia sat beside her. "Mama," she said softly, "do you think things will ever change?" Madame Judith turned to her, her eyes tired but steady. "Yes," she said, "but only if we don't give up." Amelia looked at her siblings playing nearby, Cindy laughing, Caleb chasing Calvin, Charity clapping her hands at something only she understood. In that moment, something settled deep inside Amelia's heart. A decision, a promise. That night, as the others slept, Amelia lay awake, staring at the ceiling. "I will not let this be our story," she whispered to herself. "I will change it." It was not loud, no one heard it, but it was real, a vow. From that day forward, Amelia worked with a different kind of fire. She woke up earlier. She took on more work. She learned quickly how to negotiate better prices, how to save small amounts, how to stretch every coin. People in the village began to notice. "That girl," they would say, "she has something in her." But Amelia didn't think of it as strength. She thought of it as a necessity. Years passed. Not in big dramatic moments, but in small, steady steps. Her hands grew rough. Her shoulders are stronger. Her mind is sharper. And slowly, very slowly, things began to change. Not overnight, not all at once, but enough. Enough to keep going. Amelia never forgot her vow. Not on the hardest days. Not when she felt tired. Not when she wondered what her life could have been. Because to her, it was never just about survival. It was about something more. A future where Cindy, Caleb, Charity, and Calvin would not have to stop their dreams halfway like she did. A future where Madam Judith could rest. A future that looked different from the past. And every time she felt like giving up, Amelia would whisper the same words she had spoken that night. I will change our story. And she meant it, every single time. The village of Kasinga sat quietly on the edges of massacre in Uganda, a place where red soil clung to your feet and stories travelled faster than the wind. It was the kind of place where everyone knew your name and your struggles. For Amelia, that was both a comfort and a curse. By the time she turned 16, her life had become a routine of survival. Every morning before the sun rose, she would tie one of her 3 dresses tightly around her waist and step out into the cold, carrying a worn-out basin or a hoe, whatever the day demanded. She had only 3 pairs of clothes, not because she didn't want more, not because she didn't care, but because that was all life had given her. She washed them carefully at the well, scrubbing until her fingers wrinkled, then hanging them on a thin line behind their small house. Sometimes they didn't dry in time. Sometimes she had to wear them again before they were fully clean, and that was when the whispers began. Look at her, always in the same clothes. She's a dirty girl. She doesn't even care about herself. The words came from people she saw every day, neighbours, women at the well, even girls she once went to school with. Amelia heard them. She always heard them. But she never answered. Because how do you explain to people that you are trying your best when your best still looks like nothing to them? Her work was the kind most people avoided. She cleaned compounds where others wouldn't step. She dug pit latrines under the harsh sun. She carried heavy sacks of charcoal, washed piles of dirty clothes, and sometimes worked in fields from sunrise to sunset with barely enough pay to bring home a proper meal. The villagers called her when there was dirty work to be done, and Amelia always said yes, not because she liked it, but because her family needed it. Still, no matter how much she gave, it was never enough for some people. She didn't even finish school, they would say. What kind of future does she have? An illiterate girl like that. She will remain nothing. Those words cut deeper than hunger ever could. Because Amelia remembered. She remembered sitting in class, raising her hand, answering questions faster than anyone else. She remembered dreaming of becoming someone who could change her family's life. Now, those dreams felt like stories from another lifetime. But Amelia was not completely alone. There were 3 people who never turned their backs on her. Lena, with her quiet strength and kind eyes, was always the first to defend her. People talk too much, she would say. They don't know your story. Kevin, who had known Amelia since childhood, never treated her differently. He would walk beside her through the village, joking, laughing, making her forget, even if just for a moment, how heavy life felt. And Martha was like fire. If anyone dared insult Amelia in her presence, she didn't stay silent. One day, Martha would say boldly, "You people will look for her, and she won't even have time for you." Amelia would laugh when she heard that, not because she believed it, but because it felt good to imagine. One afternoon, after a long day cleaning a compound at the far end of Kasinga, Amelia sat by the roadside, her body too tired to move. Her hands were covered in dust, her dress was stained, sweat clung to her skin. A group of women passed by, glancing at her. "See how she looks," one of them muttered. "Dirty girl." Amelia lowered her eyes. For a brief moment, something inside her trembled. Not anger, not sadness, something deeper. A question. Is this all I will ever be? That evening, she walked back home slowly, the sun dipping behind the hills of Masaka, painting the sky in soft gold. She found her siblings waiting for her. Calvin ran to her first, hugging her legs tightly. "Did you bring something?" he asked innocently. Amelia smiled, even though her heart was heavy. "Yes," she said softly. "It wasn't much, just a little food." But to them, it was everything. Later that night, after they had eaten and everyone had fallen asleep, Amelia stepped outside. The village was quiet again. The same kind of quiet it had been years ago when she made her vow. She looked up at the stars, her chest rising slowly. "They call me dirty," she whispered. "They call me nothing." She paused. Her eyes hardened, not with bitterness, but with something stronger, determination. "But they don't know me." At that moment, Amelia realized something the village had never understood. Her struggles had not broken her. They had been building her. Every insult, every long day, every tear she wiped away in silence. It was all shaping something inside her, something the world had not yet seen. And just like that night years ago, she spoke. Again, her voice low but firm. "I made a vow, and I haven't forgotten. I will rise." Far away, the lights of Masaka town flickered in the distance. A place bigger than Kasinga, a place full of unknown possibilities. Amelia didn't know how, she didn't know when, but for the first time in a long time, she felt it clearly. Her story was not ending in that village. It was only beginning. The days in Kasinga did not get easier. If anything, they grew heavier. The little Amelia earned was no longer enough. Prices at the market kept rising, work became unpredictable, and some days she returned home with nothing but dust on her hands and exhaustion in her bones. Madam Judith tried her best to stretch every coin, but even she could not hide the truth anymore. There were nights they slept hungry, nights when the younger ones asked questions she had no answers for. "Mama, will we eat tomorrow?" Those words stayed in Amelia's chest long after everyone had fallen asleep. One late afternoon, with the sun hanging low over the hills of Masaka, Amelia sat in Madam Judith's compound with the only people who truly understood her, Lena, Kevin, and Martha. The ground was dry beneath them. A weak breeze carried the smell of cooking fires from nearby homes. But in that small circle, there was a different kind of silence, the kind that comes when everyone is thinking the same thing. But no one has said it yet. It was Kevin who finally spoke. "We can't keep living like this," he said, picking at the dust with a stick. No one argued because it was true. Martha leaned forward, her voice steady but bold as always. "Then we leave." Amelia looked up. "Leave? Go where?" "To Masaka," Martha said. "The city is big. There are opportunities there. People find jobs, start businesses. Something must work." Lena nodded slowly. "Even small jobs are better than this." Amelia's heart began to beat faster. Masaka. She had seen its lights from a distance, heard stories about it. A place where life moved faster, where people could become something more. But it was also unknown. And unknown meant risk. "What if it doesn't work?" Amelia asked quietly. Martha didn't hesitate. "Then at least we tried." That night, Amelia sat with Madam Judith under the dim light of a small lamp. "I want to go to Masaka," she said softly. Her mother looked at her for a long time. There was fear in her eyes, but also understanding. "You are the one who carries this family," Madam Judith said. "If you believe this is the way, then go." Amelia swallowed hard. "I will come back with something better," she promised. Madame Judith reached out and held her hand. "Just don't lose yourself." A few days later, before the sun rose, Amelia and her friends left Kasinga. No big goodbye, no crowd, just quiet determination. They carried small bags, barely enough for a few clothes, and hearts full of hope they couldn't afford to lose. Masaka was nothing like the village. It was loud, busy, unforgiving. People moved quickly, as if everyone was chasing something and there was no time to stop. Cars passed in a constant rush, voices overlapped, and the air itself felt heavier. For a moment, Amelia stood still, overwhelmed. "This place," Lena whispered. "It's too much." But Martha smiled. "This is where life changes," she said. At first they were hopeful. They walked, from shop to shop, asking for work. "Do you need help? Anything at all?" But most people barely looked at them. Others asked questions. "Where is your education certificate? Do you have experience?" Amelia felt those questions hit harder than insults, because she already knew the answer. Days passed. Hope began to thin. They found small jobs here and there, washing dishes, carrying goods, cleaning, but nothing stable. Nothing enough to survive in a place that demanded money for everything. Food, shelter, even a place to rest. Soon, the little they had brought with them was gone. Nights became the hardest. They had no proper place to stay. Sometimes they squeezed into overcrowded rooms. Other times they sat outside, waiting for morning, their bodies tired and their spirits slowly breaking. One night, as they sat on a quiet corner of a busy street, Kevin spoke again. But this time, his voice was different. "What if we made a mistake?" No one answered immediately, because for the first time, it felt real. They were stuck in a big, wide city that did not know them, did not care about them. Amelia pulled her knees closer to her chest. She looked around at the unfamiliar streets, the passing strangers, the endless movement. This was not the dream she had imagined. This was not the change she had promised. For the first time in a long time, fear crept into her heart. Not the kind she felt in the village. This was deeper, heavier. What if I fail them? Beside her, Lena rested her head on Amelia's shoulder. Martha stared ahead, unusually quiet. Kevin sighed, running his hands through his hair. They had came looking for something better, but instead, they had found uncertainty. Amelia closed her eyes for a moment, and in the darkness she heard it again, her own voice. That promise she made years ago. "I will change our story." She opened her eyes slowly. The city had not welcomed her, but it had not defeated her either. Not yet. "We are not going back like this," she said quietly. Her friends turned to look at her. Her voice was calm but firm. "We didn't come here to give up." Martha's lips curled slightly. "That's the Amelia I know." The night remained cold. The city remained hard. Their situation had not changed, but something inside Amelia had. They were lost. They were struggling. They were stuck. But she was still alive. Masaka did not soften with time. If anything, it became harsher. After days turned into weeks, Amelia and her friends found themselves moving from place to place, chasing survival the same way they once chased hope. They tried every corner of the city, shops, markets, small businesses, but rejection followed them like a shadow. "Come back with experience. We are not hiring. You people again?" Sometimes they didn't even get words, just a wave of the hand, a door closing, or a look that told them they didn't belong. There were nights they slept on people's verandas, curling up close to each other to fight the cold. Other nights, they stayed on the streets, alert and restless, afraid of both the darkness and what it might bring. And then there were the city council officers, harsh, unforgiving. They chased them from corners, from walkways, from anywhere they tried to rest. Move, you can't stay here. Amelia still remembered one evening when they had barely settled on a quiet veranda, their bodies too tired to even speak. Get up, a voice shouted. Before they could even gather their things, they were already being pushed away. That night, they walked for hours, no destination, just movement. But even in all that struggle, something kept them together. They did not leave each other, not once. One morning, just as the sun rose over Masaka, something finally changed. Kevin had heard about a large restaurant known as the Master Chef on the other side of town, a place known for its steady flow of customers and strict management. They might be hiring, he said, though even he didn't sound sure. Still, they went, because at that point, trying was all they had left. The restaurant stood tall compared to everything around it, clean, busy, important. The kind of place where people who made it came to eat. Amelia hesitated at the entrance, her heart pounding. Let's just try, Lena whispered. And so they stepped in. The manager, Mr. John, looked at them carefully. Their clothes were simple. Their faces carried the weight of sleepless nights. Their voices were hopeful, but tired. Why should I hire you? He asked. And they were all very beautiful, and Kevin also was handsome in his simple clothes. So the manager thought it through without saying a word, but in his mind, these will attract more rich people to the restaurant, then my position will be secured. There was a moment of silence. Then Amelia stepped forward. We are hardworking, she said simply. We learn fast, and we won't disappoint you. Something in her voice, steady, honest, made him pause. After a long moment, he nodded. You start today. For a second, none of them moved. Then Martha let out a small laugh, almost in disbelief. Did he just say yes? And just like that, everything began to shift. The work was not easy. Long hours, endless customers, constant movement. Amelia, Lena, and Martha worked as waitresses, moving quickly between tables, carrying trays, cleaning, serving, smiling, even when their feet ached. Kevin worked alongside them as a waiter, doing his best to keep up with the fast pace. But this time, it was different. They were not chasing work. They had it. On that same day after work, Mr. John, the manager, showed them their hostels, where they will be spending their nights. It was a dream come true to all of them, because at first they didn't have jobs, leave alone a place for sleeping. They were moved to tears, thanking him endlessly. Amelia took her job seriously. She paid attention to everything, how orders were taken, how customers were treated, how the restaurant operated. She listened more than she spoke, learned faster than expected. For the first time in a long time, she felt something new, stability, even if it was small. One afternoon, during a busy shift, the restaurant filled with unfamiliar faces, well-dressed, confident, laughing easily. People who clearly belonged to a different world. Amelia carried a tray carefully as she approached one of the tables. Seated there was a young man, calm, composed, different from the others. There was something about him that made her slow down for just a second. Good afternoon, she said politely. What would you like to have? The young man looked up. Their eyes met, and for a brief moment everything around them faded. The noise, the movement, the rush of the restaurant. Hi, he said with a small smile. I'm Steve. Amelia blinked slightly, surprised by the casual introduction. I'm Amelia, she replied. It was simple, unexpected, but something about that moment felt different. Steve was not like the other customers. He spoke kindly, listened when she talked, treated her like she mattered, not like someone just passing by his table. When she brought his order, he thanked her, When she checked on him, he smiled. Small things, but to Amelia, they stood out. Over the next few days, he returned, not always at the same time, but often enough, and each time he asked for her. Their conversations started small. How is work? Are you from around here? But slowly they grew. He learned about Kasinga, about her family, about the struggles she didn't usually share with strangers. And Amelia found herself listening too. Steve was one of the well-known young rich men in Masaka, but he didn't carry it loudly. There was a quietness to him, a curiosity, as if he was trying to understand a world very different from his own. Lena noticed it first. That one, she whispered one evening, nudging Amelia lightly. He looks at you differently, Martha smirked. Be careful. City boys come with stories. Kevin just smiled. Or maybe this one comes with change. Amelia shook her head, trying to brush it off. But deep inside, she felt it too. It wasn't love. Not yet. It was something simpler. A connection. A beginning. For the first time since arriving in Masaka, Amelia felt like something was finally opening up. Not just survival, but possibility. That night, as she lay down to rest, her body still tired but her heart strangely light, she stared into the darkness. Everything she had gone through, the insults, the hunger, the struggle, it all felt like it was leading somewhere. Somewhere she could not yet see clearly, but somewhere real. And quietly, almost like a reminder to herself, she whispered, "My story is changing." And this time, it truly felt like it was. Life did not become easy overnight, but for the first time in a long while, it began to feel possible. The job at the big restaurant, MasterChef Hotel, became more than just survival for Amelia and her friends. It became a starting point. A place where their days had structure, where their effort meant something, where at least one part of their lives made sense. And when Amelia received her first pay, she held the money in her hands for a long time before spending even a coin. It felt heavier than it should have, not because of the amount, but because of what it meant. That evening, she went to the market. She bought foodstuffs carefully, flour, sugar, soap, choosing each item like it carried a piece of her heart. Then she added something extra. Clothes, simple, but new, for Cindy, for Charity, even a small shirt for Calvin. She hesitated for a moment before adding one more piece, a dress for Madame Judith. A few days later, she sent everything home, and when word came back, it broke something inside her, not in pain, but in relief. They were so happy, Lena said softly, reading the message again. Calvin refused to remove his shirt, Kevin added with a smile. Martha looked at Amelia. You did that. Amelia didn't speak. She simply nodded, her eyes slightly wet. For the first time since leaving Kasinga, she felt like she was keeping her promise. At the restaurant, days flowed into each other, busy, loud, demanding. But there was something else now, something new. Steve. At first, his visits felt random. Then they became frequent. Then, expected. Again? Martha whispered one afternoon as she spotted him walking in. Lena smiled slightly. He's not here for food. Kevin chuckled quietly. That one has found his reason. Amelia tried to ignore them, but even she couldn't deny it anymore. Steve was coming more often than usual, and every time he did, his eyes searched for her. Their conversations grew longer, more natural, more personal. He began waiting until her shift slowed down, just to talk. Sometimes about simple things like the city, life, and small jokes. Other times, deeper. Do you ever regret leaving the village? He asked one evening. Amelia thought for a moment. No, she said finally. It's hard, but staying would have been harder. Steve nodded slowly, as if he understood more than she had said. There was something about him that felt easy, too easy, and that was what made it dangerous. Amelia began to notice the changes, the way she looked forward to his visits, the way her tiredness faded a little when he walked in, the way silence between them didn't feel uncomfortable. And Steve noticed too. He lingered longer, smiled more, asked more questions. One evening, as Amelia stepped outside the restaurant for a short break, Steve followed. The city lights flickered around them, and for a moment, Masaka felt quiet. "You've changed," he said gently. Amelia looked at him. "How?" "You smile more now." She let out a small laugh. "Maybe I'm just getting used to the struggle." Steve shook his head slightly. "No, it's something else." Their eyes met, and this time, neither of them looked away quickly. Back inside, Lena was watching. She didn't look happy. That night, the four of them sat together after work, just like they used to back in Kasinga. But this time, the air felt different, heavier. "Amelia," Lena started carefully, "we need to talk." Amelia looked at her, already knowing where this was going. "It's about him, isn't it?" she said quietly. Kevin sighed. "We are not saying he's bad. But," Martha added, leaning forward, "this thing between you two, it's growing." Amelia stayed silent because she couldn't deny it. "You don't know his world," Lena continued softly, "and he doesn't know yours, not fully. People like him," Kevin added, choosing his words carefully. "They don't struggle the way we do." Martha crossed her arms. "We've seen stories like this before." Amelia looked at each of them, her friends, the same people who had slept on the streets with her, who had shared hunger, fear, and hope. If anyone had the right to speak, it was them. "I hear you," she said finally. And she meant it. But deep inside, something else was speaking too. Not louder, but stronger. Because what she felt with Steve did not feel like a mistake. It felt like something she had not allowed herself to have for a long time. Connection, care, possibility. That night, as she lay down, her thoughts refused to settle. Her family back in Kasinga, her vow, her struggles, and now, Steve. For the first time, her path did not feel straight anymore. It felt divided. But one thing remained unchanged, the promise she made. "I will not lose myself," she whispered into the darkness. Because no matter what this new feeling was becoming, Amelia knew one thing for sure: she had not come this far to forget who she was becoming. Something had shifted, not loudly, not suddenly, but in a way that could no longer be ignored. For days, Steve had not been himself. Even in his quiet, comfortable home in Masaka, where everything was always in place, his mind refused to rest. Nights stretched longer than usual. Sleep came in pieces, broken, restless, because every time he closed his eyes, he saw Amelia, her voice, her strength, the way she smiled without even trying. It followed him everywhere. He tried to ignore it, tried to tell himself it was nothing, just a passing feeling. But the more he resisted it, the stronger it became. And then one day, Amelia stopped being the same. She began to avoid him. Not completely, not obviously, but enough. Shorter conversations, less eye contact, excuses to leave quickly. Where there had once been ease, there was now distance. Steve noticed immediately, and it unsettled him more than anything else. That evening, he didn't sit at his usual table. Instead, he waited until her shift ended. Outside the Master Chef Hotel, the night was calm, but the tension between them wasn't. "Amelia," he called gently. She stopped walking. For a second, she considered pretending she hadn't heard, but she turned. "Why are you avoiding me?" he asked, his voice steady but honest. "I'm not," she replied quickly. But even she didn't believe it. There was a pause. Then Steve stepped closer. "I haven't been able to sleep," he said quietly. That caught her off guard. He ran a hand through his hair, searching for the right words. "My mind, it's always on you," he admitted. "I tried to ignore it. I tried to act normal, but I can't anymore." Amelia's heart began to race. "I like you, Amelia," he said, his voice softer now. "More than I planned to, more than I expected." Silence fell between them, heavy, real. Amelia looked away, not because she didn't feel anything, but because she felt too much. Her friends' voices echoed in her mind. "This is moving too fast. You don't know his world. Be careful." And beneath that, her own fears, her responsibilities, her vow, everything she had worked for. "I can't do this," she said quietly. Steve frowned slightly. "Can't do what?" "This. Whatever this is becoming." He studied her carefully. "This isn't one-sided, Amelia," he said gently. "I can see it." She didn't respond, because he was right. But feeling something and allowing it were two different things. Then she walked away without turning back. For days after that, Amelia kept her distance, even more than before. She buried herself in work, avoided moments alone, focused only on what she could control. But feelings don't disappear just because you refuse to face them. They wait, they grow. And Steve, he didn't push, but he didn't disappear either. He still came to the restaurant, still sat quietly, still watched her, not with pressure, but with patience. Time passed, not long, but enough. One evening, as Amelia sat alone after her shift, she felt the weight of everything pressing down on her again. Her family, her struggles, her promise. And now, this. She closed her eyes, and for once, she allowed herself to ask a different question. What if this isn't a distraction, but a part of my journey? When she opened her eyes, her decision was already made. The next time Steve came, she didn't avoid him. She walked up to his table, calm, certain. "I've been thinking," she said. Steve looked up, his expression unreadable. "I was scared," she admitted. "Not of you, but of what this could mean for my life," she paused. "But I can't keep running from something that feels real." Steve said nothing. He simply listened. "I don't know where this will go," she continued, "and I won't promise what I can't control." She met his eyes. "But I'm willing to try." For the first time in days, Steve smiled, not wide, but genuine. And just like that, something new began. Their connection grew stronger, more open, more certain. Steve began to spend more time with her, not just at the restaurant, but outside of it. Short walks, conversations that stretched into hours, and slowly, he started doing more. At first, it was small things, helping her with transport, buying her lunch when she skipped meals. Then it changed. He brought her gifts, simple at first, then more, clothes, better ones, shoes. Things Amelia had never allowed herself to imagine owning. And then came the money. "Take this," he said one day casually, handing it to her. "For what?" she asked. "For whatever you need." At first, she refused. "I can manage," she said, but Steve insisted. "You don't have to struggle alone anymore." And slowly, she started accepting. With that money, she sent more home, more food, better clothes, more support for Madam Judith and her siblings. And for a moment, it felt like everything was finally falling into place. But not everyone saw it that way. Lena noticed first. "You're changing," she said one evening. Amelia frowned. "What do you mean?" "You don't worry the same way anymore." Kevin added quietly, "And the money, it's coming too fast." Martha crossed her arms. "Nothing comes that easy without a price." Amelia felt a small discomfort rise in her chest. "He's just helping," she said. But even as she spoke, she knew why they were worried. Because this was no longer just friendship, no longer just feelings. This was something deeper, something faster, something that could either lift her or break everything she had built. That night, as she lay awake, Amelia stared into the darkness once again. Her life was changing, faster than she expected, but deep inside, a quiet question remained. At what cost? And somewhere beneath the comfort, the gifts, and the growing love, her vow still stood, waiting, watching. Life had begun to move in a direction Amelia had never imagined. Not in Kasinga, not during the long days of digging, washing, and enduring whispers, not even when she first arrived in Masaka, tired and uncertain. Now things were changing faster than she could fully understand. Steve had become a constant in her life, not just someone who visited the restaurant anymore, but someone who was present, someone who listened, who cared, who showed up. And the more time they spent together, the more natural it began to feel. Too natural. One evening, after her shift, Steve asked her to come with him. Just for a short while, he said. Amelia hesitated at first, but something in his tone felt different, important. They drove through parts of Masaka she had never seen before. Quiet streets, large houses, gates that spoke of a life far removed from struggle. And then they stopped. Amelia stepped out of the car slowly. In front of her stood a mansion. Not just a house, a mansion. Wide compound, bright lights, clean polished walls that reflected wealth she had only heard about in stories. For a moment, she couldn't move. "Is this?" she began. Steve nodded. "My home." Her heart pounded. This world felt too far from hers, too perfect, too different. Inside, everything was even more overwhelming. Soft couches, shiny floors, silence that didn't carry struggle. Amelia walked carefully, almost afraid to touch anything. "This is your life," she whispered. Steve looked at her, not with pride, but with something softer. "It could be ours," he said. She turned to him, confused. "What do you mean?" He stepped closer. "I don't want you going back to those struggles every night," he said gently. "I don't want you worrying about where to sleep or how to survive." He paused, then said it clearly. "Move in with me, Amelia." The words hung in the air, heavy, real. For a moment, everything inside her went silent. Her past, her struggles, her vow. All paused, just long enough for the weight of that question to settle. A different life, a better life, a life she had fought so hard to reach. And now, it was being offered to her. Excitement rushed through her, fast, unexpectedly. She imagined her mother resting without worry, her siblings living better, no more sleepless nights, no more running from city council officers, no more being called nothing. "Yes," she whispered softly, almost to herself. Then louder, "Yes, I will." That night, she could barely sleep, not because of struggle this time, but because of possibility. The next day, she couldn't wait to tell her friends. They gathered in their usual place after work, tired, but together. "I have something to tell you," Amelia said, her voice carrying a mix of excitement and nervousness. Martha raised an eyebrow. "This sounds serious." Amelia took a deep breath. "Steve asked me to move in with him." Silence. Instant. Heavy. Lena was the first to react. "Move in? With him?" she repeated slowly. Kevin sat up straighter. "Amelia, that's not a small step." Martha shook her head immediately. "No, no, no, this is too fast." The excitement in Amelia's eyes dimmed slightly. "I knew you'd say that," she said quietly. "It's not that we don't want you to be happy," Lena said gently. "But this changes everything." "You've just started building your life," Kevin added. Don't rush into something you might not fully understand. Martha leaned forward, her voice firm. We've seen how these stories go. It starts well, then suddenly everything changes. Amelia listened, every word, because she knew they were not speaking from jealousy. They were speaking from care. I understand, she said softly, but I've thought about it. She paused. For once, life is giving me a chance to breathe. They looked at her, and for the first time, they saw it clearly. This wasn't just about Steve. It was about everything she had been through, everything she had survived. I'm tired, Amelia continued, her voice breaking slightly. Tired of fighting every single day just to survive. Silence fell again, but this time, it was different. Lena reached out and held her hand. If you've decided, then we won't stand against you. Kevin nodded slowly. We'll just make sure you don't lose yourself in the process. Martha sighed, shaking her head slightly, but her expression softened. I still don't like it, she admitted. But I'm not leaving your side. Amelia smiled faintly, relief washing over her. Thank you, she whispered. That night, as they sat together a little longer than usual, something unspoken passed between them. Things were changing. Paths were beginning to separate, but their bond remained. Later, as Amelia walked away, her heart was full of excitement, of fear, of hope. She was stepping into a new life, one she had once only dreamed of. But somewhere deep inside, her vow remained, quiet, unshaken. And though she didn't fully realize it yet, this decision would change everything. Amelia did not tell Madame Judith, not about the mansion, not about moving in with Steve. The only people who knew were Lena, Kevin, and Martha. Even when she packed her few belongings, folding the same 3 dresses that had carried her through years of struggle, her hands trembled slightly, not from doubt, but from something deeper, a quiet awareness that this step was bigger than anything she had done before. The day she moved into Steve's mansion, the world she had known seemed to fade behind her. No more crowded streets, no more running from city council offices, no more sleepless nights on verandas. For the first time in her life, Amelia had space, silence, comfort. Steve made it easy for her, too easy. You don't need to work anymore, he told her gently one evening as they sat in the wide living room. Amelia looked at him, surprised. What do you mean? I mean, you've struggled enough, he said. Let me take care of things now. Focus on us, on building what we have. She hesitated for a moment. Work had been her identity, her survival, her way of staying grounded. But then she thought about the long days, the exhaustion, the constant pressure. And slowly, she nodded. The next day, she left the MasterChef hotel. Just like that. At first, everything felt perfect, almost unreal. Amelia woke up without rushing, ate without worrying about the next meal, wore clothes she never imagined she would own. She laughed more, rested more, and Steve, he gave her attention, time, care. It felt like a reward, like life was finally giving back what it had taken from her. But slowly, very slowly, something began to feel different. At first, it was small things. Steve asking where she was going, even when she was just stepping outside. Just tell me before you leave, he would say, smiling. She didn't think much of it. Then it became, why don't you just stay home today? You don't need to go out so much. I'll bring you whatever you need. Amelia told herself it was care, nothing more. Her calls to her friends became shorter, not because she didn't want to talk, but because Steve was always around, listening, watching. One evening, Lena called. Come see us, she said. It's been days. Amelia hesitated. I'll try. she replied. But when she mentioned it to Steve, he smiled lightly. You just saw them recently, didn't you? She frowned slightly. Not really. They'll be fine, he said calmly. You're here now. She didn't go. The days passed, and the mansion, once exciting, began to feel quieter, too quiet. There were moments Amelia couldn't explain. Doors that seemed to have been closed, slightly open, things she didn't remember touching, moved. A strange feeling of being watched, even when she was alone. But every time she tried to think about it deeply, she pushed it away. It's just in my head, she told herself. Until one day, she finally spoke. She met Lena, Kevin, and Martha after insisting she needed to see them. The moment they saw her, something in their expressions changed. You look different, Kevin said quietly. Amelia forced a small smile. I'm fine. But they could tell. Something wasn't right. They sat down, just like they used to. But this time, the space between them felt unfamiliar. There's something I need to tell you, Amelia said slowly. And then she did. She spoke about the strange feelings, the small things she couldn't explain, the way she sometimes felt uncomfortable without knowing why. By the time she finished, silence filled the air. Lena looked worried. Kevin leaned back, thinking deeply. But Martha's face hardened. This is not normal, she said firmly. Amelia frowned. What do you mean? All these things you're describing. They're signs, Martha continued. You're not seeing it because you're inside it. Kevin nodded slowly. It feels like control, Amelia. Slowly, step by step. Lena reached for her hand. You left your job, she said softly. You don't come around anymore. You're depending on him for everything now. Amelia pulled her hand back slightly. That's not true, she said quickly. He's just helping me. Helping you, or isolating you, Martha shot back. That hit harder than Amelia expected. You're overthinking it, Amelia said, her voice rising slightly. Not everything is bad. Not everyone has bad intentions. We're not saying he's bad, Kevin replied calmly. We're saying, be careful. I am careful, Amelia insisted. But even as she spoke, something inside her felt unsettled. You're blinded, Martha said quietly this time. You don't see what's happening because you don't want to. That was the moment everything shifted. Amelia stood up. I came here to talk, not to be judged, she said, her voice tight. No one is judging you, Lena said quickly. We're just trying to protect you. I don't need protection, Amelia replied. The words came out sharper than she intended, but she didn't take them back. For the first time since everything began, there was distance between them, real distance. Amelia walked away that evening with a heavy heart, not because she believed her friends were right, but because a part of her feared they might be. Still, when she returned to the mansion and saw Steve waiting, smiling, calm as ever, everything softened again. You're back, he said gently. And just like that, the doubt faded. I'm home, she replied. That night, as she lay beside him, Amelia stared into the darkness, her mind quiet, her heart full, and her vow still there, but fading beneath something stronger, love, or at least what she believed it to be. Sleep no longer came easily to Amelia. At first, it was just restlessness, turning from side to side, her mind refusing to settle. But soon, the nights became heavier, darker. The dreams began quietly, fragments at first. She would see herself back in Kasinga. But something was always wrong. The village would be empty. The paths she once walked would stretch endlessly, leading nowhere. Her siblings would call her name, but when she turned, no one was there. Then the dreams grew worse. She would see herself standing in the mansion, but alone. The doors locked, the windows dark, a voice whispering her name from somewhere she could not reach, and every time she tried to move, she couldn't. She would wake up suddenly, her heart racing, her body covered in cold sweat, and each time something felt off. One night, she woke up again, breath uneven, the echo of a dream still clinging to her. She turned slightly and froze. The space beside her was empty. "Steve?" she called softly. No response. At first, she thought he might be in another room, the bathroom, the kitchen. But as she stepped out of bed and moved through the mansion, something inside her began to tighten. The house was too quiet. She checked every room, the living room, empty, the kitchen, silent, the corridors, still, no sign of him. A strange feeling crept into her chest. Not fear, not yet, but something close. Then she noticed something. The door leading outside, slightly open. Amelia hesitated. For a moment, she thought about going back, about ignoring it, about waiting until morning, but something stronger pushed her forward. She stepped outside. The night was thick and quiet, the kind of darkness that seemed to swallow sound. The compound stretched wide, the trees standing like silent watchers under the faint light of the moon. At first, she saw nothing. Then a figure. Her breath caught. It was Steve, standing near one of the trees, still, facing away from her. Amelia's heart began to pound as she stepped closer, slowly, carefully. And then she heard it. His voice, low, calm, talking, but not to her. Amelia froze, because there was no one else there, at least, no one she could see. She quickly moved, her instincts taking over, slipping behind one of the trees nearby, her body pressed against the rough bark, hidden, watching. Steve continued speaking, pausing, as if listening, responding. But the space in front of him remained empty. Amelia strained her eyes, trying to see, trying to understand, but there was nothing, only him, standing there, talking into the darkness. Then he turned slightly, and for a brief moment, she saw his face. It was different. Not the calm, gentle expression she knew, not the softness he showed her. It was unreadable, still, almost distant. A chill ran through her. She held her breath, afraid even the smallest movement would reveal her, but Steve didn't look in her direction, didn't sense her. After a while, he went silent. Then, slowly, he turned and walked back toward the house. Amelia stayed hidden, her body stiff, her mind racing. Only when she was sure he was inside did she move. Slowly, carefully. She returned to the bedroom and lay down quickly, closing her eyes, pretending to be asleep. Moments later, she felt the bed shift. Steve had returned. She didn't move, didn't speak, but inside, nothing was the same. Morning came like any other. Sunlight, silence, routine. Steve acted normal, too normal, as if nothing had happened. Amelia watched him carefully, her mind replaying everything from the night before. The voice, the empty space, the look on his face. Finally, she spoke. "Where did you go last night?" she asked, keeping her tone as steady as she could. Steve didn't hesitate. "I just needed some fresh air," he said calmly. "The trees outside, they help me think." Amelia held his gaze, searching, looking for something, anything. But his expression didn't change. She nodded slowly. "Okay," she said. And just like that, she let it go. At least on the surface, because deep inside, she knew that was not the truth. But Amelia didn't push, didn't question further, didn't reveal what she had seen. Because now, she wanted to understand. Who was he talking to? That night changed something, not loudly, not completely, but enough. For the first time since she had moved into the mansion, Amelia was no longer just living in it. She was watching it, and Steve was no longer just someone she loved. He had become a question, one she was determined to answer, even if it meant stepping into a truth she was not ready for. The nights stopped feeling like rest. They became something Amelia feared. After that first night, things did not go back to normal. They grew darker, quieter, heavier. At first, Amelia told herself it was just her mind. Stress, adjustment, too many thoughts. But the house did not feel the same anymore. Sometimes, in the middle of the day, she would be sitting alone in the living room, and she would see it, a shadow moving quickly, gone before she could fully turn. She would stand up immediately, her heart racing, checking every corner. Nothing, always nothing. Other times, she would hear voices, low, faint, like people talking in another room. She would follow the sound, slowly walking through the long corridors of the mansion, her footsteps careful against the polished floor. But when she reached the place where the voices seemed to be, silence, complete silence. It happened again and again and again, until she stopped telling herself it was nothing. But there was no one she could talk to. Lena, Kevin, Martha. Their faces would come into her mind, the last conversation replaying over and over. You're blinded. Be careful. This is not normal. She had walked away from them, chosen her path, and now she was alone in it. One evening, unable to hold it in anymore, she finally spoke to Steve. I think something is wrong, she said quietly. He looked at her, calm as always. What do you mean? I hear things, she admitted, voices, when no one is there. And sometimes I see shadows, moving. Her voice trembled slightly. I don't understand it. Steve didn't react the way she expected. No shock, no concern. Instead, he smiled lightly. You're overthinking, he said. Amelia frowned. No, it feels real. You've been through a lot, he replied gently. Your mind is just adjusting. That's all. Adjusting. The word sat heavily in her chest. She nodded slowly, because part of her wanted to believe him, needed to, but the feeling didn't go away. And then there was the night. Every night. It became a pattern. Around 3 a.m. without fail. Amelia would wake up, sometimes from a dream, sometimes for no reason at all, and the bed beside her would be empty. At first, she pretended not to notice, but after what she had seen, she couldn't ignore it anymore. One night, she stayed awake, still, quiet, eyes barely open. She watched Steve. Slowly, carefully, he got out of bed, moved quietly across the room, and left. Amelia waited, her heart beating louder than the silence around her. Then she followed. Again, the door, slightly open, the cold air outside brushing against her skin. And again, Steve, standing under the trees, talking, to no one. Every night the same thing. Every night the same voice. The same pauses. The same emptiness in front of him. Amelia stopped hiding out of curiosity. She started hiding out of fear. Back inside the house, the shadows didn't stop. The voices didn't stop. The feeling of being watched didn't stop. And slowly, her heart began to waver, not in love, but in peace, because during the day, everything looked perfect. Steve took her out. Nice places, beautiful views, soft laughter. He bought her clothes she had never imagined wearing, shoes that made her feel like she belonged somewhere higher than where she came from. He gave her money, more than she had ever held in her hands before. Send it home, he would say, for your family. And she did. Madam Judith no longer worried about the next meal. Cindy and Charity had better clothes. Calvin was finally smiling more. Every message from home was filled with gratitude, relief, joy. You've saved us, her mother said one time. Amelia cried when she heard that, because this was what she had promised, her vow. But here, in the mansion, she was breaking. Because no matter how much money came in, no matter how beautiful her life looked from the outside, she was not at peace. Steve was changing too, not in ways that were easy to explain. He smiled, he cared, he provided, but there was something distant about him now, something she could not reach, something that stayed outside with him every night at 3 a.m. And the strangest part of it all, the more these things happened, the more his life seemed to rise. More money, more success, more power. It was as if, while Amelia was losing something inside her, Steve was gaining something, and she couldn't explain it. One night, after another dream that left her breathless and shaking, Amelia sat up in bed, her eyes filled with quiet fear. She didn't follow him this time. She didn't move. She just sat there, alone, in a house that no longer felt like a home. Tears rolled down her face silently. "I did all this for them," she whispered. "For my family." Her voice broke. "But why do I feel like I'm losing myself?" No answer came, only silence, heavy, endless. And somewhere outside, under the trees, Steve was speaking again. To someone, only he could see. Something inside Amelia finally gave in. Not suddenly, not loudly, but slowly, like a thread that had been pulling tighter and tighter until it could no longer hold. That night, she didn't cry. She didn't follow Steve. She didn't question anything. She just sat there in the silence and made a decision. By morning, her face was calm, too calm. Steve left as usual, confident, composed, unaware of the storm that had already passed through her heart. And the moment the gate closed behind him, Amelia moved. She didn't pack everything, just a small bag, a few clothes, the things that still felt like hers. She paused at the door for a moment, looking back at the mansion, the beautiful walls, the life she once thought was her breakthrough. Then she whispered, almost to herself, "I choose me." And she walked away. Masaka felt different that day. Not bright, not exciting, but real. Her steps led her to the only place she knew she could start again, the Master Chef Hotel. Her heart pounded as she stood at the entrance. Memories rushed back. The laughter, the struggle, her friends, and the way she had left. Taking a deep breath, she stepped inside. Everything felt familiar. The smell of food, the sound of plates, the movement of people. But what hit her the most was seeing them. Lena, Kevin, and Martha. They froze when they saw her. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Amelia walked toward them slowly, her eyes already filled with tears. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice breaking before she could say anything else. Silence. "I'm so sorry," she repeated, tears now falling freely. "You tried to warn me, you stood by me, and I pushed you away." Lena's eyes softened immediately. Martha covered her mouth, emotional. Kevin looked down, shaking his head slightly. "We were worried about you," Lena said quietly. "I know," Amelia whispered, "and I should have listened." Before she could say more, Martha stepped forward and hugged her tightly. "You came back," she said softly. "That's what matters." Kevin nodded. "You're safe now," he added. And just like that, the weight Amelia had been carrying began to loosen. Not completely, but enough. After a while, Amelia gathered the courage to face the manager, Mr. John. She found him in his office, her hands trembling slightly as she knocked. "Come in," his voice came from inside. Amelia stepped in slowly. He looked up, surprised. "Amelia?" She lowered her eyes. "Yes, sir." There was a brief silence before she spoke again. "I came to apologize," she said sincerely, "for leaving the way I did, without notice, without respect." Her voice shook. and I came to ask if there's any chance I could work here again." Mr. John leaned back slightly, studying her. He didn't answer immediately. The hesitation made Amelia's heart sink. "I understand if you say no," she added quickly. I need a chance to start again." Before he could respond, there was a knock on the door. Lena, Kevin, and Martha stepped in. "Sir," Kevin said respectfully, "we know she made a mistake." "But she's a hard worker," Lena added. "She never gave you trouble before." Martha nodded. "Please, give her another chance." Mr. John looked at all of them, then back at Amelia. Something in his expression softened. "You put me in a difficult position," he said finally. Amelia nodded quietly. "I know." He sighed. "But I also know what struggle looks like," he continued, "and I've seen your effort before." Amelia looked up, hope flickering in her eyes. "All right," he said, her breath caught. "You can come back," he added, "but this is your last chance." Relief hit her all at once. "Thank you, sir," she said quickly, her voice full of gratitude. "I won't disappoint you." "I believe that," he replied. That evening, Amelia was back where she had once started. Not rich, not comfortable, but something she hadn't felt in a long time, at peace. But somewhere else in Masaka, Steve returned home. "Amelia?" he called out as he stepped inside. No response. He frowned slightly, moving through the house. Room after room, empty. His expression slowly changed. He reached for his phone, dialed her number. Not reachable. Again, not reachable. Something dark flickered in his eyes. He didn't wait. He got into his car and drove, fast, through the streets of Masaka, to the places he knew. He searched everywhere. Then finally, the MasterChef Hotel. He stepped inside, his presence commanding attention immediately. His eyes scanned the room, sharp, focused. But Amelia had already seen him. From the moment he walked in, her heart dropped. "Hide," Lena whispered quickly. Without hesitation, they moved. Kevin distracted one of the supervisors. Martha guided Amelia quickly toward the back. Amelia's breathing became uneven as she slipped into a small storage room, pressing herself against the wall. Outside, she could hear footsteps, voices, then silence. Steve was searching. Her heart pounded so loudly she thought it would give her away. She covered her mouth, trying to steady her breath. Minutes felt like hours, until finally the footsteps faded and the silence returned. Amelia slowly slid down the wall, sitting on the floor, her body trembling. "He came for me," she whispered. Lena knelt beside her. "You're safe," she said firmly. But Amelia shook her head slowly. "No," she whispered, her eyes filled with fear. "He won't stop." And deep down, she knew, leaving the mansion was only the beginning, not the end. Life did not return to normal. It only became quieter, careful, measured. For weeks, Amelia lived like someone hiding from a storm she knew had not yet passed. She worked. She laughed with Lena, Kevin, and Martha. She listened to Mr. John's advice, slowly finding pieces of herself again. But the fear, it never fully left, because Steve didn't stop looking. He came to the MasterChef Hotel again, and again, and again. Sometimes in the morning, sometimes in the evening, sometimes when no one expected him. Each time, his eyes searched the room, sharp, determined, unsettling. And each time, Amelia disappeared before he could see her. She learned where to hide, the storage room, the back kitchen, even outside behind the staff quarters. It became a routine, a silent game, until weeks turned into 2 months. And then, something changed. At first, it was small, almost nothing. A wave of nausea in the morning, a sudden dizziness while carrying plates, a strange heaviness in her body. "You look tired," Martha told her one day. "I'm fine," Amelia replied, forcing a smile. But she wasn't. The sickness grew stronger. Her energy faded. Some mornings, she couldn't even stand properly. And then came the fever, light, but persistent. That was when the thought came, quiet, uninvited. What if? Amelia tried to ignore it, but it stayed, growing louder with every passing day. Finally, one afternoon, she made a decision. She bought a test, her hands trembling the entire time. Back in a small bathroom behind the hotel, she stood there, staring at it, her heart beating so fast it almost hurt. Minutes passed, slow, heavy. Then she looked, and everything stopped. Positive. Amelia blinked, once, twice. "No," she whispered. She shook her head, her breath uneven. "This can't be right." She grabbed another test, then another, 3 times. 3 times the same result, positive. Her legs gave in, and she slowly sat down on the cold floor, staring blankly ahead. Tears filled her eyes. Not loud, not dramatic, just silent. Because in that moment, everything changed. Her mind raced, her heart pulled in different directions. Fear, confusion, a strange, quiet realization. "I'm pregnant," she whispered. The words felt unreal, heavy. Later that evening, she told her friends. They sat together in dining room just like the old days after work. But this time, nothing felt simple. "What?" Kevin said, stunned. Lena covered her mouth. Martha's eyes filled with emotion. "Are you sure?" she asked gently. Amelia nodded slowly. "3 tests," she said softly. Silence fell over them. Then Mr. John spoke, because over the past weeks he had become more than a manager. He had become like a parent to them, a protector. "You need to think carefully," he said calmly. Amelia looked at him, her eyes searching. "The safest place for you right now," he continued, "is home. Go back to your mother. Stay there until you give birth." Lena nodded. "He's right. You won't be alone there." Kevin added, "Your family will take care of you." But Amelia shook her head. "No." They all looked at her. "I can't go back like that," she said quietly. "Why?" Martha asked softly. Amelia's voice broke slightly. "Because they already have enough," she said. "I just started helping them, sending money, making things better." Tears rolled down her face. "How do I go back now? Like this?" "You're not a burden," Lena said firmly. But Amelia shook her head again. "You don't understand," she whispered. "I promised to change their lives, not add more problems to it." Her words carried pain, deep, honest. So she made another decision, one that even she wasn't sure about. She reached into her bag, pulled out her phone, the same phone that had been off for 2 months. Her hands trembled as she turned it on. Messages flooded in, missed calls, voicemails, all from one person, Steve. Her heart pounded as she stared at his name. "I have to tell him," she said quietly. No one stopped her, but no one looked at ease either. She dialed. Each ring felt heavier than the last. Then he answered. "Amelia?" His voice, clear, immediate, as if he had been waiting. For a moment, she couldn't speak. "It's me," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. Silence. Then relief. "Where are you?" he asked quickly. "I've been looking everywhere for you." Amelia closed her eyes. "There's something I need to tell you," she said. A pause. "I'm pregnant." The words hung in the air. For a second, nothing. And then, something she did not expect. Joy. "Amelia." Steve's voice changed completely. "Are you serious?" She opened her eyes, confused. "Yes." He let out a breath, almost like a laugh of disbelief. This is, this is amazing, he said. Amelia froze. Amazing. I thought, she started, unsure. You might not want. No, he cut in quickly. No, don't say that. His tone was firm, certain. Come back home, he said. We need to talk properly. This is important. For both of us. Home. The word echoed in her mind. The mansion, the shadows, the voices, the nights. Her heart tightened. She hesitated, but something inside her shifted. Because now, it wasn't just about her. There was a child, and whether she liked it or not, Steve was part of that reality. I'll come, she said quietly. After the call ended, silence filled the space again. Her friends stared at her, concern written all over their faces. What did he say? Kevin asked. Amelia swallowed. He wants me to go back. Lena shook her head slowly. This doesn't feel right. Martha reached for her hand. Are you sure about this? Amelia didn't answer immediately, because deep inside, she wasn't sure. Not about Steve, not about the house, not about what she had seen. But one thing was certain. Her life had reached a point where there was no easy choice. She placed a hand gently on her stomach and whispered softly, I have to try. And somewhere far from where she stood, something unseen shifted again, waiting. The next morning came too quickly. Amelia barely slept. Her mind had been restless all night, moving between fear and hope, between what she had seen and what she was about to walk back into. But still, she went. The mansion stood just as she had left it, tall, silent, beautiful, unchanged. Only this time, it didn't feel like a dream. It felt like something she was stepping into, carefully. Before she could knock, the gate opened. Steve stood there. The moment he saw her, his face lit up in a way she had never seen before. Amelia. He walked toward her quickly and pulled her into a tight embrace. I missed you, he said softly, holding her like she might disappear again. Amelia hesitated for a second, then slowly hugged him back. I'm here, she said quietly, and for a moment, everything almost felt normal again. Inside the mansion, nothing had changed. Everything was still in place, clean, perfect, silent. But Steve was different. He was happier, lighter, almost relieved. He didn't stop smiling, didn't stop checking on her, didn't stop talking about the baby. Our child, he kept saying. The words sounded warm. But somewhere deep inside Amelia, something still felt unsettled. Later that evening, Steve sat beside her, his tone suddenly more serious. There's something important I need to tell you, he said. Amelia looked at him, her heart tightening slightly. In our family, in our clan, he began, pregnancies are not handled in the city. She frowned slightly. What do you mean? Steve held her hand gently. You have to go to the village, he said. To my mother, Madam Grace. She will take care of you. Amelia blinked. The village, she repeated softly. Yes, he nodded. Lukaya. The name sat unfamiliar in her mind. And I have to stay there? She asked. Steve nodded again, calm and certain. Until the baby is born. Silence. Amelia felt something shift inside her. A quiet unease she couldn't explain. All pregnancies in our clan are handled that way, he added. It's tradition. Tradition. The word lingered. Amelia looked down at her hands, thinking, village life. She knew it well. But this was different. This wasn't her home, not her people, not her mother. For a moment, she almost said no. But then, she looked at Steve, at the way he held her hand, at the excitement in his eyes, at the life growing inside her, and slowly, she pushed the doubt aside. Okay, she said quietly. Steve smiled immediately, relieved. You won't regret it, he said. Amelia forced a small smile, but deep down, Something didn't sit right. That night, she called her friends. "I'm going to the village," she told them. "Which village?" Kevin asked. "Lukaya," she replied. Silence. Then Lena spoke. "I don't like this." Martha added softly, "This is moving too fast again." "It's just tradition," Amelia said, trying to sound euvered, even to herself. Kevin sighed. "Amelia, please be careful." "We're serious," Lena added. "Something about all this. It's not right." Amelia closed her eyes briefly. "I'll be fine," she said. But her voice didn't carry the confidence they were hoping for, and they all felt it. Still, there was nothing they could do. A week later, they left. The journey to Lukaya was long, quiet. Amelia watched the road as the city slowly faded behind them. The buildings disappeared, the noise softened, the air changed, and soon they were surrounded by village life again. But this time, it didn't feel like home. It felt unfamiliar, watchful. When they arrived, an old compound stood waiting, simple, but well kept, and at the center of it, a woman, Madame Grace. She stood still, her eyes fixed on Amelia, watching her, carefully. Amelia felt a chill run through her. "This is my mother," Steve said. Amelia stepped forward respectfully. "Good afternoon," she greeted softly. Madame Grace didn't smile, she simply nodded. "You've come," she said. Her voice was calm, but something about it felt heavy. Her eyes moved slowly to Amelia's stomach and then back to her face. "We will take care of you," she added. Amelia forced a polite smile, but inside, her heart tightened, because for the first time, since she agreed to come, she felt it clearly. This wasn't just about tradition. Something else was waiting for her here, something she didn't understand. And back in Kasinga, her mother still didn't know. Not where she was, not what she was going through. All she knew was that money kept coming, clothes kept arriving, life kept improving. But Amelia was walking deeper into something she could no longer see clearly. And this time, there was no one close enough to pull her back. Lukaya did not welcome Amelia the way she expected. It accepted her, quietly, watchfully. The compound was larger than it first appeared. Several small houses arranged around a wide open space, with one main house standing at the center. That was where Madame Grace stayed, and that was where Amelia was taken. "You will sleep here," Madame Grace said, her voice calm, leaving no room for questions. Amelia nodded. The room was simple but neat. A bed, a small table, a window that looked out toward the trees at the edge of the compound. It was comfortable, but not comforting. That night, as she arranged her few belongings, Amelia felt the weight of distance settle in. Far from Masaka, far from her friends, far even from her own mother, who still didn't know where she was. The silence of the village felt different from Kasinga, heavier. Later in the evening, she finally met the rest of Steve's family. Two young figures approached her as she stepped outside. "You must be Amelia," one of them said with a bright smile. She looked up. A young man, Roman, and beside him, a cheerful girl, Zara. "Yes, I am," Amelia replied softly. Zara moved closer immediately, her energy warm and welcoming. "We've heard so much about you," she said. "You're finally here." Roman nodded. "You're part of the family now." Their friendliness caught Amelia off guard. For the first time since arriving, she smiled genuinely. "Thank you," she said. They sat together for a while, talking about simple things, life in the village, growing up, and small stories that made the evening feel lighter. Zara laughed easily. Roman spoke calmly, and for a brief moment, Amelia felt like maybe, just maybe, things would be okay. That night, she slept better than she had in days. But morning came with something new. Before the sun had fully risen, Madame Grace called her. "It's time," she said. Amelia stepped outside, still adjusting to the early hour. A small group of women stood nearby, quiet, focused. One of them handed her a cup. Amelia looked down at it. The liquid inside was dark, thick, unfamiliar. "What is this?" she asked carefully. "Herbs," Madame Grace replied, "for the pregnancy." Amelia hesitated. The smell alone was strong, sharp. She brought it closer slightly and almost pulled back. It didn't look good. It didn't smell good. But all eyes were on her. "You must take it," Madame Grace said firmly. There was no softness in her tone, no option. Amelia swallowed. She forced a small nod. Slowly she lifted the cup to her lips. The taste hit her immediately. Sour, bitter, and heavy. It burned its way down her throat, leaving a strange aftertaste that made her stomach turn. She winced slightly, but forced herself to finish it. "Good," Madame Grace said. Amelia handed back the cup, her body uneasy. "Will I take it every day?" she asked quietly. Madame Grace looked at her. "Yes." The answer was simple, final. Amelia nodded slowly, because once again, she could not refuse. As the day went on, she tried to shake off the feeling. Roman and Zara stayed close to her, talking, laughing, trying to make her feel at ease. But something lingered, a heaviness in her body, a strange warmth spreading through her chest, and a quiet thought that refused to leave her mind. Why did it feel like I had no choice? That evening, as the sun set over Lucaya, Amelia sat by the window of her room, staring out at the trees. The same kind of trees, where Steve used to stand at night. Her chest tightened slightly. She thought about her friends, about their warnings, about the fear she had felt in the mansion. And now, here she was again, in another place that felt calm on the outside, but uncertain underneath. She placed a hand gently on her stomach. "I hope I'm doing the right thing," she whispered. But the silence around her gave no answer. Only the distant sound of voices, carried softly by the evening wind. Voices she could not fully hear, but somehow still felt. Steve did not stay long in Lucaya. A few days after Amelia settled in, he came to her one morning, calm as always. "I have to return to the city," he said. Amelia looked at him, her heart tightening slightly. "So soon?" she asked. He nodded. "There are things I need to handle," he replied. "But you're safe here. My family will take care of you." Safe. The word echoed strangely in her mind. She forced a small smile. "Okay," she said. Before leaving, Steve held her gently. "Take the herbs," he reminded her. "They're important." Amelia nodded, and just like that, he left. The compound felt different after he was gone. Quieter, heavier. Roman and Zara were still kind, still warm. They stayed close to her, talked to her, tried to make her feel less alone. But Madame Grace remained the same, watching, silent, certain. And every morning the herbs came, dark, thick, bitter. Amelia drank them. At first, she told herself it was for the baby, for her health, for tradition. But as the days passed, her body began to change, not in the way she expected. She grew weaker, her energy faded faster, her steps became slower, her body felt heavy, not just from the pregnancy but from something deeper. Some days, even standing felt like effort. "Mama Grace, I don't feel well," she said once, her voice low. Madame Grace looked at her calmly. "It is normal," she replied. "The body adjusts." Adjusts. Amelia nodded, because once again, she didn't feel like she had a choice. So she kept drinking, day after day, and slowly, she stopped questioning. Time moved strangely in Lucaya. The days blended together. The nights came too quickly, and before Amelia could fully understand it, months had passed. 9 months. like a dream she couldn't hold on to. Her body had grown heavier, her strength thinner, but her mind felt distant. Then one day, Steve returned. Amelia saw him from across the compound. For a moment, relief filled her chest. "You're back," she said softly. He smiled. "Yes." But something about him felt different. Again, there was excitement in his eyes, but also something else, something she couldn't name. That night, everything changed. The pain began suddenly, sharp, deep. Amelia cried out, her body trembling as the waves of pain took over. "It's time," Madame Grace said calmly. Roman and Zara moved quickly, but something felt wrong. This wasn't like the stories Amelia had heard. They didn't prepare a room, they didn't call for help. Instead, they carried her out of the compound, into the darkness. "The forest?" Amelia whispered weakly. No one answered. The trees grew thicker around them, the air colder, the night heavier. Amelia's vision blurred. The pain intensified. "Please," she cried softly. "I can't." But they kept moving, deeper, until everything went dark. She blacked out. When Amelia opened her eyes again, the world felt distant. Her body was still, weak. For a moment, she couldn't remember where she was. Then it came back, the pain, the forest, the night. Her heart began to race. "My baby," she whispered. She looked around quickly. Nothing, no child. Her hands trembled as she tried to sit up. "My baby!" she cried louder this time. No answer, only silence. Then she saw them, Madame Grace, Steve, Roman, Zara, standing a short distance away, watching her. Amelia's heart pounded violently in her chest. "Where is my baby?" she demanded, her voice shaking. No one spoke immediately. Steve stepped forward slowly. "Amelia," he said softly, but something in his voice made her chest tighten. "Where is my child?" she cried again, tears streaming down her face. Her whole body shook, because deep inside, she already felt it. Something was wrong, very wrong, and the silence that followed was louder than any answer. The silence stretched too long, too heavy. Amelia's chest rose and fell rapidly, her eyes moving from one face to another. Madame Grace, Roman, Zara, and finally, Steve. "Where is my baby?" she asked again, her voice trembling, breaking with every word. Steve stepped closer, slowly, carefully. "Amelia," he said, his tone soft, too soft. Something inside her tightened. "We lost the baby." The words landed like a blow. For a moment, nothing. No sound, no movement. Amelia blinked, once, twice, as if her mind refused to understand what she had just heard. "No," she whispered. Her voice was small, uncertain. "No, that's not possible," she said again, shaking her head slowly. Tears began to fall, but she didn't even notice. "I was fine. I was okay. The baby was okay." Her voice rose, desperate now. "You said everything was okay." No one answered, and that silence broke her. A cry escaped her chest, raw, deep, uncontrollable. She folded into herself, her hands gripping her body as if trying to hold together something that had already been taken. "My baby," she sobbed. "My baby." The pain was different from anything she had ever felt. Not like hunger, not like exhaustion. This was emptiness, a loss she had never prepared for. She cried until her body had no strength left, until her voice faded into quiet, broken breaths. And still, none explained anything. No one comforted her the way she needed. Steve stood there, watching. That was when something inside Amelia shifted, not loudly, not fully, but enough. Later, when she was back in the room, alone, weak and drained, she reached for the only people she knew would understand: her friends. Her hands trembled as she held the phone. When Lena picked up, Amelia didn't even greet. "It's gone," she whispered. Silence on the other end. "What do you mean?" Lena asked, her voice already breaking. "The baby," Amelia cried softly. "They said we lost it." Kevin and Martha were there too. She could hear them. "No," Martha whispered. "What happened?" Kevin asked urgently. "I don't know," Amelia said, her voice shaking. "Everything happened so fast. I blacked out, and when I woke up—" She couldn't finish. Her friends stayed silent for a moment, processing, thinking. Then Lena spoke, firm, clear. "Amelia, you need to tell your mother." Amelia froze. "No," she said quickly. "I can't." "Yes, you can," Kevin added. "She needs to know everything." "Everything?" Amelia whispered. Martha's voice came in, strong but gentle. "The last 2 years, Amelia," she said. "Masaka, Steve, the mansion, the herbs, everything that has happened to you." Amelia closed her eyes. Her mother, Madame Judith, the one person she had kept in the dark, the one person she had tried so hard to protect by hiding the truth. "I don't know how," Amelia whispered. "Just start," Lena said softly. "She's your mother. She will understand." Amelia's heart pounded. Fear, guilt, shame, all at once. But deep inside, she knew they were right. She had carried this alone for too long. With shaking hands, she ended the call. Then slowly, she dialed another number, her mother's. Each ring felt heavier than the last. Then, "Hello?" That voice, familiar, warm. Amelia's breath caught. "Mama?" There was a pause. "Amelia?" Madame Judith's voice filled with surprise. "My daughter, how are you? Are you okay?" And that was it. Everything Amelia had been holding in broke. She cried, not quietly, not carefully. She cried like a child. "Mama," she sobbed. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "Amelia, what is it?" her mother asked, her voice now filled with worry. "Talk to me." And slowly, piece by piece, Amelia told her everything. Masaka, the struggle, the mansion, Steve, the strange nights, the herbs, the village, the pregnancy, and finally, the loss. On the other end, Madame Judith did not interrupt, did not question. She listened, silently, until Amelia had nothing left to say, only broken breathing. Then finally, her mother spoke. "My child," her voice was soft but strong. "Come home." Amelia closed her eyes. "Mama." "Come home first," Madame Judith repeated gently. "We will talk when you get here." No judgment, no anger, just a place to return to. Amelia's chest tightened. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel lost. She felt called. "I'll come," she whispered. And as the call ended, Amelia sat there in silence. Everything she had been through, everything she had lost, everything she had ignored, it all led to this moment, going back, not as the girl who left, but as someone changed, broken, stronger, awake. And somewhere deep inside, her vow stirred again. Not about money, not about survival, but about the truth. The night Amelia made her decision, she did not sleep. Not because of fear, but because something inside her had finally woken up and it refused to go back to silence. The next morning, she found Steve in the living room, calm as always, waiting, as if he already knew she had something to say. "I want to visit my family in Kasinga," she said, her voice steady. The reaction was immediate. "No." It came too quickly, too sharp. Amelia blinked slightly. "Steve?" "No," he repeated, this time quieter, but firmer. "You're not going." Silence filled the room. Amelia felt her chest tighten. "Why?" she asked softly. Steve stood up slowly, running his hand through his hair. For the first time, he didn't look calm. He looked afraid. If you go, he paused, his voice dropping, you won't come back. That hit her harder than she expected. That's not true, she said quickly, but Steve shook his head. I've seen it before, he continued. People leave, and they don't return. His voice broke slightly. And I can't lose you too. The room grew heavy. Then, unexpectedly, Steve's expression shifted. The fear in his eyes deepened into something else. Pain, real pain. I already lost our child, he said quietly. Amelia froze. Those words, he hadn't said them like this before. Not fully, not openly. I'm sorry, he continued, his voice trembling now. I'm sorry for everything, for what happened, for what you went through. Amelia felt tears sting her eyes. I'm hurting too, Amelia, he added, stepping closer. And right now, I need you. His hands reached for hers. Don't abandon me when I need you the most. Her heart twisted. This, us, he said softly. It's real. What we have is real. He held her gaze. We can have more children, he whispered. We'll build again. You just have to be strong for us. Amelia's breath felt uneven. Everything he said, it wasn't manipulation, not entirely. There was truth in it. Pain, fear, attachment, and that made it harder. I'm not leaving you, she said gently. Steve searched her eyes. Then why go? He asked. Amelia swallowed. Because I'm not okay, she said honestly. That stopped him. I miss my family, she continued. I miss myself. Her voice softened. I need space to breathe, to think, to fix what's broken inside me. She paused. This isn't about leaving you. It's about finding myself again. Steve didn't respond immediately. He just looked at her, as if weighing every word, every possibility, every fear. 3 days passed like that, quiet, heavy, uncertain, but something had shifted. Steve no longer refused, and Amelia no longer begged. They simply existed in the truth of what was happening. Then, without much noise, they left Lukaya and returned to Masaka. The city felt different this time, not overwhelming, not exciting, just real. The very next day, Amelia went to see her friends. She didn't go empty-handed. She carried bags, flour, sugar, soap, small things that once felt like luxuries. When Lena saw her, she froze for a second, then rushed forward and hugged her tightly. You came back, she whispered. Kevin smiled, relief clear on his face. Martha folded her arms, but her eyes softened. You look alive again, she said. Amelia laughed quietly. I'm trying. They sat together for hours, talking, laughing, filling the silence that had grown between them. For the first time in a long while, Amelia felt grounded. 2 days later, she finally left for Kasinga. But something else was happening, something quiet, something strange. After returning to Masaka, Steve changed. Not in the way Amelia expected. He didn't get out of the house at night like before, didn't argue with Amelia, paid more attention to her, and also focused more on income. It started growing, fast, too fast. Business deals expanded, opportunities appeared, connections multiplied. Within days, his wealth seemed to double, then grow again. And with that growth came generosity. He sent things to Amelia's family, not just help, not just support, but abundance, new clothes, modern, trending. The kind people in Kasinga were only seen in town, shoes, household items, food in quantities they had never had before. When the packages arrived, Kasinga stopped. People stared, whispers spread. Amelia's life has changed. Look at her family. Who is behind all this? Madame Judith stood in the middle of it all, quiet, grateful, but thoughtful, because deep down, she knew something was not simple. And when Amelia finally stepped into Kasinga, everything felt different. The same red soil, the same wind, The same home, but a different weight. Her siblings ran to her, laughing, holding on to her. Calvin refused to let go. Cindy kept touching her clothes. Charity smiled endlessly. Caleb stood back for a moment, then nodded, proud. Madame Judith walked forward slowly, and when their eyes met, no words were needed. They embraced, tightly, deeply, like something lost had returned. That night, as Amelia sat outside under the same sky where her vow had once been born, she felt it again. That quiet voice, that truth. Her life was changing, fast, too fast. Between love, loss, wealth, and something she still couldn't fully understand. And far away in Masaka, Steve stood alone in his mansion, watching, waiting, holding on to something or someone. Amelia. Kasinga welcomed Amelia like it always had, quietly, honestly, without pretending to be anything it wasn't. But this time, Amelia was not the same girl who had once left it behind. The second evening after her return, she sat outside with Madame Judith under the fading light. The air carried that familiar village calm, the kind that made thoughts louder. For a while, they said nothing. Then Madame Judith spoke. Amelia. Her voice was soft but serious. I need you to listen to me. Amelia turned slightly. There is something about that man, she continued slowly. Something that is not clear. Amelia's heart tightened. Mama, let me finish, she said gently but firmly. Amelia went quiet. Madame Judith looked straight ahead, her eyes thoughtful. Things don't just change like that, she said. Money, life, everything becomes easier overnight. It doesn't come without something behind it. She turned to Amelia. It feels like there is something he is hiding. The words hung heavy in the air. I don't want you to go back, she added quietly. Amelia felt a wave of emotions rise inside her. Confusion, resistance, pain. Because deep down, she had already heard these words before. From Lena, from Kevin, from Martha, and now, from her mother. But this was different. This was home speaking. This was truth without judgment. I hear you, Mama, Amelia said softly. But her voice lacked certainty. And just like that, time began to pass. 2 weeks. Steve called. Every day. Sometimes once, sometimes 10 times. Amelia would stare at the phone, watch his name appear, let it ring, and then silence it. Each time hurt, more than the last. Because ignoring him didn't erase what she felt, it only buried it. At night, she would read his messages, long, emotional, unfiltered. I miss you. Please talk to me. I'm not okay without you. Amelia, don't do this to us. She never replied, but she never stopped reading. And that was the problem. Because no matter how much she tried to stay strong, her heart refused to forget. He loves me, she whispered one night to herself, and I love him. Meanwhile, in Masaka, Steve did not stop, not once. He called again, and again, and again, like someone holding onto the edge of something he was afraid to lose. Amelia finally reached her limit. She couldn't carry it alone anymore. She called her friends. Lena, Kevin, and Martha were seated together when she called. The moment they saw her call, they knew. He's still calling, isn't he? Kevin asked. Yes, Amelia answered. I haven't answered, she said. Not once. But it's killing you, Lena added softly. So much, Amelia replied. I don't know what to do anymore. Martha didn't hesitate. You stay, she said firmly, just like we told you before. You didn't see the messages, she said. You didn't hear his voice, Amelia said softly. And you're not seeing clearly, Martha replied. Silence. Then Kevin spoke softly. Amelia, we are not against love, he said calmly. But this is not simple. Your mother said the same thing, she reminded her gently. Lena added. Amelia closed her eyes briefly, because that was the truth. Everywhere she turned, the answer was the same. Don't go back. But her heart, it refused to agree. 4 more days passed. Steve didn't stop, not for a single day. His messages grew deeper, more desperate, more real. You are my peace. I know I made mistakes, but don't shut me out like this. We went through something together. Don't let it end like this. Amelia, please come back. And that was it. That was the moment everything broke inside her. Because no matter how much doubt existed, one truth remained. She loved him, deeply, honestly, uncontrollably. That evening, Amelia made her decision. She walked slowly to where Madame Judith was seated. The same place, the same silence, but a different weight. Mama, she said gently. Madame Judith looked up and immediately saw it. The decision. You're going back, she said quietly. It wasn't a question. Amelia nodded slowly. Tears filled her eyes. I've tried, she whispered. I've really tried to stay away. She stepped closer. But he's been there for me, through everything. Her voice broke. He's the only man I've ever loved. Madame Judith said nothing for a moment. Because this was no longer about logic. This was about the heart. I can't ignore him anymore, Amelia continued. I can't pretend I don't feel what I feel. She wiped her tears. I need to go back. A long silence followed, heavy, painful, honest. Then Madame Judith stood, slowly. She walked up to her daughter, held her face gently. If this is the path you've chosen, she said softly, then walk it with open eyes. Amelia's breath caught. Be careful, she added. Protect yourself. Don't lose who you are again. Amelia nodded, tears falling freely now. I won't, Mama. But deep inside, even she wasn't sure. That night, under the same sky that had witnessed her vow, Amelia prepared to leave once again. Back to Masaka, back to Steve, back to something she still didn't fully understand. And somewhere far away, as if he could feel it, Steve's phone lit up. For the first time in weeks, it wasn't him calling, it was her. That night, Amelia didn't hesitate. Her fingers trembled slightly as she held the phone, her heart beating faster than it had in days. For a moment, she just stared at Steve's name on the screen. Then she called. It rang once, twice, then, Amelia? His voice, soft, disbelieving, almost afraid to hope. She closed her eyes. I'm coming back, she said quietly. Silence, then a sharp breath on the other end. Are you serious? He asked, his voice breaking. Yes, she whispered. I can't stay away anymore. She heard him exhale deep, shaky, relieved. I've been waiting for you, he said. Every day. Tears slipped down her cheeks. I know. The next morning, Amelia woke up early. The sun had barely risen over Kasinga, but her mind was already set. She began packing her things carefully. Not many, just what mattered. The same dresses, a few new ones, memories folded quietly between them. Before leaving, she sat with Madame Judith. The moment felt heavier than words could carry. Amelia reached into her bag and pulled out money, more than she had ever handed over before. For upkeep, she said softly, and school fees. Madame Judith looked at it, then at her daughter. This is too much, she murmured. It's not enough, Amelia replied gently. Her voice softened. Take care of them until I can do more. Madame Judith held the money slowly, but her eyes never left Amelia's face. You're really going? She said. Amelia nodded. I have to. There were no long speeches, no dramatic goodbyes. just a tight embrace, the kind that says everything words cannot. Be careful, Madame Judith whispered again. I will, Amelia replied. But this time, she held onto those words a little tighter. By evening, Amelia was on the road. The journey felt longer than before, not because of distance, but because of everything it carried. Hope, fear, love, doubt. Hours later, she arrived. Steve's home stood just as grand as she remembered, but something about it felt bigger, quieter, more powerful. Before she even reached the door, it opened. Steve stood there. For a second, they just looked at each other. No words, no movement, just two hearts that had refused to let go. Then he stepped forward and pulled her into his arms. Tightly, like he had been holding that moment for weeks. You came back, he whispered. I did, she said softly. That night, after settling in, Amelia made one more call to her friends. Lena answered first. Amelia? I'm back, she said quietly. There was a pause. Then Kevin's voice in the background. You went, didn't you? Amelia swallowed. I'm sorry, she said. I couldn't take it anymore. Her voice cracked. I tried, but I couldn't. Silence followed. Not angry, not disappointed, just understanding. We knew this might happen, Lena said gently. Martha sighed on the other end. You're stubborn, she muttered. But we get it. Kevin added softly, we're still here for you. Amelia smiled faintly through her tears. Thank you. But listen, Martha's voice came again, firm this time. Be careful. More careful than ever. I will, Amelia said. And this time, she meant it with everything in her. Back inside, Steve didn't hold back. Not anymore. The man Amelia had returned to was not the same man she had left. He had grown, not just emotionally, but financially, massively. His wealth had expanded beyond anything she had imagined. Deals, businesses, connections. Everything had multiplied. He was no longer just a rich young man. He was becoming something else, a force, a name, a presence. And he poured it all into her. Gifts came endlessly, clothes, jewelry, things Amelia had never even dreamed of touching. But more than that, he gave to her family relentlessly. Food arrived in abundance, new furniture, better living conditions. Everything Madame Judith had once struggled for now came easily. School fees were paid on time, every term, without delay. Years passed just like that, not loudly, but steadily. Cindy and Caleb grew, stronger, smarter, closer to their dreams, and then one day they were completing high school. Amelia stood quietly when she received the news, her heart full, her eyes wet. They made it, she whispered. All those nights, all those struggles, all those sacrifices, they had meant something. And Madame Judith, for the first time in years, she rested. Not completely, but enough to breathe. Amelia's life looked perfect, more than perfect, but sometimes, late at night, when everything was quiet again, she would sit alone and think about Kasinga, about her vow, about the path she chose. And somewhere deep inside, that small voice still existed, not loud, not urgent, but present, reminding her that not every blessing comes without a story behind it. And not every story has revealed its truth yet. Time, for once, had been kind. Not perfectly, but kind enough. The day Cindy and Caleb graduated felt like a dream that had taken years to arrive. Kasinga was alive that morning. Neighbors gathered, voices filled with pride, laughter carried across the compounds. For a village that had once watched Amelia struggle, this moment felt like a victory for all of them. Cindy stood tall, her smile bright and confident. Caleb, trying to act composed, couldn't hide the pride in his eyes. Amelia held them both tightly when she arrived. "You made it," she whispered, her voice trembling. "No," Cindy replied softly. "You made it possible." That broke something inside Amelia, but in the best way. Not long after, they both found work, small beginnings, but honest ones, and for the first time, Amelia felt her burden begin to lift. Life continued, and then something unexpected happened. One quiet morning, Amelia sat alone in her room, her hand resting unconsciously on her stomach. She had been feeling different, not sick, not tired, just different. When the realization finally settled in, her breath caught. Her heart raced, her eyes filled instantly. "I'm pregnant." She whispered it like it might disappear if she said it too loudly. Then she laughed, then cried, then laughed again. When Steve came in, she stood up quickly, her hands shaking. "I have something to tell you," she said. He looked at her curious. "What is it?" She stepped closer, her voice barely holding steady. "We're going to have a baby." For a moment, he froze. Then his face changed completely. Shock, joy, disbelief. "Amelia," he breathed. And then suddenly he had to sit down. He laughed weakly, holding his head. "I almost fainted," he said, overwhelmed. He stood up and pulled her into his arms, tightly, carefully, like she was something fragile and sacred at the same time. "This time," he whispered, "this time it will be different." Amelia wanted to believe that. She truly did. That same day, she called Madame Judith. "Mama!" Her voice was soft, emotional. "What is it, my child?" her mother asked. "I'm pregnant." Silence, then a sharp inhale, then joy. "Amelia," Madame Judith's voice filled with warmth. "This is good news." Tears rolled down Amelia's face. "I was scared to say it." "Don't be," her mother said gently. "This is a blessing." Then her tone softened. "But you must be careful. Take care of yourself. Protect this child." "I will, Mama," Amelia whispered. She called Lena, Kevin and Martha next. Their reactions came all at once. "What?" Martha shouted. Lena laughed. Kevin sighed in relief. "This is beautiful," Lena said. "Just be careful," Kevin added. Martha, quieter this time, said, "We're happy for you, truly." Amelia smiled through her tears. For once, everything felt right. But that same evening, Steve spoke again. "There's something we need to do," he said. Amelia looked at him. "What?" "You have to go to Lucaya." Her smile faded slightly. "For what?" "So my family can take care of you," he said calmly. "It's our tradition." He paused. "Madam Grace, Zara, and Roman will be there." Amelia's heart sank. Not again. Memories rushed back. The herbs, the medicines, the weakness, the fear she had never fully understood. "I don't want to go back there," she said quietly. Steve's expression softened. "It's important," he replied. "For the baby." That night, Amelia called her mother again. "They want me to go back," she said. Madame Judith went silent. "Be careful," she said after a long pause. "That place." She didn't finish the sentence. Her friends reacted the same way. "I don't like this," Martha said immediately. "Something about that place isn't right," Kevin added. Lena's voice was soft but worried. "If you go, don't ignore what you feel this time." Amelia sat in silence after the call, her mind torn, her heart divided, but in the end, she chose. "It's his family," she told herself. "It's our child." And so she went. Lucaya welcomed her again, but this time, it felt different. Madame Grace greeted her warmly. Zara smiled. Roman nodded calmly. "Welcome back," Madame Grace said. Everything looked peaceful, normal, too normal. The next day came too quickly. They gave her the medicine again. the same one. Amelia hesitated just for a moment, then she took it. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and slowly, the change began. Her body grew weaker, her strength faded, her energy drained, just like before. At first, she ignored it. It's just pregnancy, she told herself. But deep down, she knew something wasn't right. By the time the final days came, Amelia could barely stand. The night of delivery arrived quietly, too quietly. Pain came suddenly, sharp, overwhelming. She cried out, but her voice felt distant, fading. The last thing she remembered was the room spinning, and then darkness, complete darkness. When she woke up, she was in bed, back in the house, her body weak, her head heavy, her heart racing. "Where is my baby?" she asked immediately. Silence. Then Madame Grace spoke softly. "We lost him." The words shattered something inside her. Again. Amelia stared blankly. Her lips trembled, her chest tightened. "No," she whispered. Tears rolled silently down her face. Not loud, not dramatic, just broken. Something inside her knew this wasn't normal. This wasn't just loss. This was something else, something hidden, something dark, something she had ignored for too long. That night, as she lay there, staring into the silence, her body weak, her heart empty, a memory flashed, not clear, but enough. Hands, movement, the cold air of the forest. Her breath stopped. "What happened to me?" she whispered. And for the first time, the question was no longer small. It was terrifying. The journey back to Masaka felt longer than it had ever been. Amelia sat quietly beside Steve, her body still weak, her eyes fixed on nothing in particular. The road moved, the car moved, but inside her, everything felt still, empty. Steve didn't speak much, and neither did she. Because some pain doesn't need words. When they arrived, the mansion stood just as it always had, grand, silent, untouched by loss. But Amelia was not the same. She stepped out slowly, her movements careful, her spirit heavy. Steve held her arm gently, guiding her inside. "I'm here," he said softly. She nodded, but even that comfort didn't reach where it needed to. Later that evening, she made the calls. First, to Madame Judith. "Mama." Her voice was faint. Her mother already knew something was wrong. "What happened, my child?" she asked. Amelia swallowed. "We lost the baby." Silence, then a quiet, painful breath. "Again," Madame Judith whispered. Amelia closed her eyes. Yes, this time the pain was deeper, not just grief, but confusion, fear. "I don't understand," her mother said softly. "What is happening to you, Amelia?" Amelia had no answer, and that was what scared her the most. She called her friends next. Lena cried. Kevin went silent. Martha didn't speak for a long time. "This is not normal," Martha finally said. Kevin added quietly, "Something is wrong. Somewhere." Lena's voice trembled. "We need to understand this." But no one had answers, only questions. Too many questions. Meanwhile, life continued. Cindy got married, a simple but beautiful ceremony, full of laughter, music, and hope. Not long after, she gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. When Amelia heard the news, she held the phone tightly. "She's healthy?" she asked. "Yes," Cindy replied happily. "Perfect." Amelia smiled, a small one, but real. Tears followed, not of sadness, but something mixed, joy, and something she couldn't name. Caleb, too, had found his path. He married a gentle, kind woman named Liz, and soon they were expecting a child. Back home, Charity and Calvan were finishing high school, growing, becoming something more. Everything Amelia had fought for was happening, but inside her, something had changed. She didn't smile easily anymore, not like before. Even in moments of happiness, there was always something behind her eyes. A shadow, a question, a memory she couldn't fully grasp. But one thing remained clear. She didn't leave Steve, not this time. She stayed, close, present, watching. Because whether it was love or something deeper she couldn't explain, she couldn't walk away. Time passed quietly, and then it happened again. Amelia realized she was pregnant. This time, she didn't react loudly. No tears of excitement, no sudden joy, just silence. Her hand rested on her stomach, her heart beating slowly, carefully. This time, she whispered to herself, and for the first time, she made a different choice. She didn't tell Steve, not immediately. Instead, she packed quietly, took only what she needed. I want to visit my mother, she told him. Steve looked at her for a moment, then nodded. All right, he said calmly. No resistance, no questions. But he gave her things, plenty of them, money, more than enough, gifts for her family, clothes, food, support, just usual, just that. This time they exceeded. Take these, he said, for them. Amelia accepted, watching him carefully. Thank you, she said softly. And just like that, she left, back to Kasinga. The moment she arrived, something inside her settled, not completely, but enough. That night she sat with Madame Judith again, the same place, the same quiet. Mama, she began, her voice steady this time. I'm pregnant. Madame Judith froze, then slowly turned to her. Does he know? She asked. Amelia shook her head. No. Silence filled the air. Why? Her mother asked gently. Amelia looked down. Her voice dropped. Because I don't understand what's happening to me. That truth hung heavily between them. I don't want to lose another child, she whispered. Madame Judith reached for her hand. You won't, she said firmly. Not this time. But even she wasn't entirely sure. Amelia called her friends next. I need you to keep this a secret, she told them. From Steve? Kevin asked. Yes. There was hesitation, but then understanding. If this is what you feel is right, Lena said. We're with you, Kevin added. Martha's voice came last. Then this time, we do things differently. Amelia exhaled slowly. For the first time in a long while, she felt like she was choosing her path, not reacting, not following, choosing, and far away in Masaka. Steve stood alone once again, watching, waiting, but this time, something was different, because, for the first time, Amelia was keeping something from him, something important, something that could change everything. When Amelia arrived in Kasinga this time, she did something she had never done before. She switched off her phone, completely. No calls, no messages, no way for anyone, especially Steve, to reach her. It wasn't easy. The first night alone felt heavier than she expected. Her fingers kept reaching for the phone out of habit, then stopping midway. No, she whispered to herself, not this time. Because she knew something about herself now. She loved deeply, and that love could weaken her decisions. So she chose silence. Days passed, slowly at first, then faster. Kasinga wrapped around her again, the mornings, the familiar voices, the quiet strength of her mother's presence. And something unexpected began to happen. Her body felt different, better. There was no strange weakness, no sudden exhaustion, no draining feeling like before. Instead, she felt steady, strong, alive. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into a month. Then two. And the pregnancy was growing well. Amelia would sit outside in the evenings, her hand resting gently on her stomach, a quiet smile forming on her lips. This time, she whispered softly, you're safe. Madam Judith watched her carefully. Every movement, every change. "This is how it's supposed to be," she said one day. And for the first time, Amelia believed it. But far away in Masaka, Steve was breaking. At first, he thought it was temporary. She just needs time, he told himself. But days passed, then weeks. No calls, no messages, no sign. He went looking for her. Everywhere. Places she used to visit, places she loved, places he thought she might go. Nothing. He called. Again, and again, and again. But her phone remained off. The silence began to eat at him. Slowly, painfully. He stopped sleeping properly, stopped focusing. Even his growing wealth meant nothing. "Where are you, Amelia?" he whispered one night, sitting alone in the same mansion that once felt full. Now it echoed. He went to her friends. Lena opened the door. The moment she saw him, she knew. "Please," Steve said, his voice already breaking, "tell me where she is." Kevin stood behind her. Martha watched silently. "We don't know," Lena said softly. It wasn't entirely a lie, but it wasn't the truth either. "Please," Steve repeated. "I'm not okay." Martha looked at him closely. For the first time, she saw something different. Not control, not confidence, pain, real pain. But still, they said nothing. Because this time, they were protecting Amelia. Back in Kasinga, 2 months passed just like that. And then one evening, Amelia sat quietly, staring at her phone. Her heart was calm now, stronger, clearer. "I can't hide this forever," she whispered, because no matter what had happened, one truth remained. He was the father. Slowly, she turned the phone on. For a moment, nothing happened. Then everything happened. Calls, messages, notifications, all at once, like rain falling after a long drought. Her screen filled instantly. Steve, 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 Steve. Missed calls, dozens, hundreds, messages. "Where are you? Please talk to me. I'm losing my mind. Amelia, I'm sorry. Just tell me you're okay. I love you." Her chest tightened, tears filled her eyes. He hadn't stopped, not once. She held the phone tightly. Then slowly, she typed, "I'm okay. I'm in Kasinga. And I'm pregnant." She stared at the message for a moment, then sent it. Almost instantly, the phone rang. She hesitated, then answered. "Amelia?" His voice came, breathless, overwhelmed. "Is it true?" "Yes," she said softly. Silence. Then a shaky laugh, then relief, then emotion. "I've been dying without you," he said honestly. "I didn't know where you were, what was happening." Amelia closed her eyes. "I needed space," she said. "I understand," he replied quickly. "I do. But please, come back." She shook her head, even though he couldn't see her. "I'm not coming back like that," she said. "Then let's talk," he pleaded. "Face to face, please." She hesitated. Her heart pulled in 2 directions. "I don't want to meet," she said quietly. But Steve didn't give up. Days passed, then a week, then another. He called, texted, pleading, not demanding, not controlling, just asking. "Let me see you. Let me talk to you. Let me understand." And slowly, Amelia's resistance began to soften. Not because she was weak, but because she still cared. 2 weeks later, she finally spoke. "All right," she said quietly. Steve went silent. Then, "Really?" he asked. "Yes," she replied, "but on one condition. Anything. A public place." There was a pause. Then, "Okay," he said. And just like that, the meeting was set. 2 people, 2 hearts, 2 truths, about to face each other again. But this time, everything was different because Amelia was no longer the same, and Steve was no longer in control of the situation. And somewhere deep beneath it all, a truth was waiting, ready to reveal itself. The meeting place was quiet, but not empty. A small cafe at the edge of Masaka. People moved in and out, conversations blended into a soft background hum, and yet for Amelia, it all felt distant. Her hand rested protectively over her stomach. Her eyes scanned the entrance. Then Steve walked in. For a moment, everything stopped. He looked different, not just physically, but in a way that spoke of sleepless nights, unanswered questions, and something heavy he had been carrying alone. When his eyes met hers, relief, pain, love, all at once. "Amelia," he said softly. She didn't stand, didn't smile, just nodded slightly. "Sit," she said. He obeyed. Silence settled between them, thick, uncomfortable, heavy with everything that had not been said. Steve's eyes moved to her stomach, then back to her face. "It's true," he whispered. Amelia didn't respond. "You look stronger," he added quietly. "I am," she said. That answer lingered. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Amelia leaned forward slightly, her voice calm but firm. "I need the truth, Steve." He froze. "Everything," she added. "No more half answers, no more silence." Steve's hands tightened slightly on the table. His eyes dropped. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he exhaled deeply, like someone finally giving up a fight they could no longer win. "You won't understand," he said quietly. "Try me," Amelia replied. Another silence. Then Steve looked up, and this time there was no hiding in his eyes. "Before I came to Masaka," he began slowly, "my life was nothing." Amelia didn't interrupt. "We were poor," he continued, "not just struggling, surviving." His voice grew heavier. "The kind of life where every day feels like a battle you're already losing." Amelia's chest tightened slightly, because she knew that life. "One day, I was traveling to Masaka," he went on, "in a taxi." He paused. "That's when I met him." "Who?" Amelia asked quietly. "A native doctor, Salongo Muwanga." Something inside her shifted. "We talked," Steve continued. "Just small things at first, but then he said something that changed everything." His voice lowered. "He told me if I wanted to become rich, truly rich." Amelia felt her heartbeat quicken. "I had to make a sacrifice." The air between them grew colder. "What kind of sacrifice?" she asked. Though deep down, she already felt the answer coming. Steve swallowed. His hands trembled slightly. "He told me," his voice cracked, "I needed to find a woman I truly love." Amelia's breath slowed. "And make her fall deeply in love with me." Her fingers tightened under the table. "Then," he paused, struggling, "we would have children." Amelia's heart pounded now, loud, painful. "And those children," his voice broke completely now, "would be sacrificed." Silence. Not normal silence, but the kind that crushes everything. Amelia stared at him, her face pale, her body still. "4," Steve whispered. "4 children." The words hit her like a storm. Her mind raced, her chest tightened, her breath became uneven. "No," she whispered. Steve couldn't meet her eyes anymore. "And after that," he continued weakly, "I would marry her, stay with her forever, and never marry anyone else." Amelia pushed her chair back slightly, not fully standing, but enough to create space. "Tell me that you're lying," she said, her voice shaking. "I wish I was," Steve replied. Tears filled her eyes. "So, our children," she whispered. Her voice broke. Steve looked up. His eyes were red now, filled with regret, with guilt. I didn't want to lose them like that, he said quickly. Not like this. But you did, Amelia said, her voice sharper now, pain cutting through it. I thought I could control it, he said desperately. I thought I could find a way to protect you, to protect them. But you didn't, she said again. Silence. Everything around them faded. The cafe, the people, the world. All that remained was truth, raw, ugly, unforgiving. Amelia's tears fell freely now. You used me, she whispered. Steve shook his head immediately. No, no, Amelia, I love you. Love? She repeated, her voice breaking. You call this love? I didn't expect to fall for you like this, he said quickly. It was supposed to be just a plan. He swallowed hard. But you changed everything. Amelia laughed weakly through her tears, a broken laugh. Everything? She whispered. Then why didn't you stop? That question he had no answer for, and that silence said everything. Before Amelia could even process it all, Steve suddenly stood. Then he dropped to his knees, right there, in the middle of the cafe. People turned, whispers started, but neither of them cared. Please, he said, his voice desperate now. Don't leave me. Amelia froze. We've already come this far, he continued. We can't stop now. Her heart pounded violently. Stay, he pleaded. Let's finish what we started. Her breath caught. So that our children... His voice broke completely. Don't die for nothing. That sentence cut deeper than anything else. Amelia stepped back, her whole body trembling now. Her mind screamed, her heart shattered, her soul torn in two, because standing before her was a man she loved, and at the same time, a man who had destroyed her. And now, he was asking her to continue, to sacrifice more, to choose between love and truth, between her heart and her child. Her hand slowly moved to her stomach. For the first time, fear wasn't silent. It was loud, clear, unavoidable, and the question finally rose, stronger than ever before. What kind of love demands this? Steve's voice trembled again. Amelia, please. But this time she didn't answer, because for the first time she wasn't confused. She understood everything, and that understanding was terrifying. At this moment, everything became very clear. All the questions, the dark nights at the mansion, the loss of their two children. Amelia didn't remember standing up. She didn't remember the chairs scraping the floor. She didn't remember the people staring. All she remembered was walking away. Steve's voice followed her. Amelia, please! But she didn't turn, not this time. Her steps were fast at first, then unsteady, then almost desperate. By the time she reached the road, her chest was tight, her breath uneven, her eyes blurred with tears she could no longer hold back. Everything he said echoed in her mind, every word, every truth, every lie that had been wrapped in love. Our children. Sacrifice. Finish what we started. No, she whispered to herself, shaking her head. No. That same day, she left. No goodbye, no second thought. Back to Kasinga. The journey felt endless, but this time it wasn't fear she carried, it was truth. When she arrived, Madame Judith saw it immediately. The pain, the confusion, the breaking. My child, she said softly, and that was all it took. Amelia collapsed into her arms. Tears came without control. Words came in pieces, broken, heavy, unfiltered. She told her everything, everything Steve had confessed, everything she had endured, everything she now understood. By the time she finished, the air around them felt heavier. Madame Judith sat very still, her face calm, but her eyes carried something deeper. I knew, she said quietly. Amelia looked up, shocked. I didn't know everything, her mother continued, but I knew something was wrong. Silence. Then Madame Judith held her daughter's face gently. Listen to me, Amelia. Her voice was firm now, grounded. Trust God in everything. Amelia's tears slowed slightly. This is not your path, she continued. This is not your life. Her grip tightened just a little. You are not going back to that man. The words were clear, final. Amelia didn't argue, but something inside her still struggled. Later that evening, she called her friends. Her voice was quieter now, more controlled, but the pain was still there. I know everything, she said. There was silence on the other end. Then Martha spoke first. I knew it, she said, her voice low. Lena sounded shaken. This is worse than we thought. Kevin exhaled slowly. Amelia, this is serious. Amelia nodded to herself. I know. What are you going to do? Lena asked gently. That question, again. Amelia closed her eyes. I don't know. There was a pause. Then Kevin spoke carefully. Then follow your heart, Martha added, softer than usual. Do what you believe is right, not what anyone else tells you. Lena whispered. We're with you, no matter what. For a moment, Amelia felt supported, held, but something still wasn't settled, because there were two more voices she needed to hear, her siblings. She called Cindy first. Hello? Cindy answered warmly. Amelia swallowed. Cindy, I need to tell you something. She explained everything, slowly, carefully. Painfully, there was silence when she finished. Then Cindy spoke. Amelia? Her voice was calm, but different. You need to think carefully. Amelia frowned slightly. I am thinking carefully. No, Cindy continued. I mean, about your future. Amelia's heart started to tighten again. I have a child now, Cindy said softly. A family. Amelia listened. I can't imagine losing everything, just to try and stop something that's already started. Those words landed heavily. What are you saying? Amelia asked quietly. I'm saying. Cindy paused, choosing her words. Maybe you should cooperate with him. Amelia froze. I don't want you to lose your life or everything you've built for this, Cindy added. Her voice wasn't cruel. It was practical, but that made it worse. Amelia felt something crack inside her. Okay, she whispered. She ended the call. Her hands trembled slightly now. Then she called Caleb. He picked up quickly. Amelia, what's going on? She told him everything too, every detail, every truth. When she finished, he didn't hesitate. I'm tired, he said. Amelia blinked. Tired of what? Tired of being poor, he replied bluntly. Her heart dropped. We've struggled enough, he continued. All our lives. Amelia couldn't speak. This is an opportunity, Caleb said. An opportunity? She repeated faintly. Yes, he said firmly. Just complete the ritual. Her breath caught. So we can be rich, forever. Silence. Heavy, crushing, unbelievable. Amelia slowly lowered the phone. Her ears rang, her chest tightened, her world shifted, because in that moment she realized something she had never allowed herself to see. All those years, all those sacrifices, all that pain she carried for them. She thought she was protecting them. She thought she was fighting for them. But now she wasn't sure. Tears rolled down her face again. But this time, they felt different. Not just pain, betrayal, confusion, loneliness, because the people she had given everything for were not standing where she expected them to stand. Her mother said no. Her friends said choose. Her sister said adjust. Her brother said finish it. And in the middle of it all, she stood alone. Her hand slowly moved to her stomach. The only life now, that depended entirely on her. Who do I listen to? She whispered. The night was quiet, but inside her, a storm had begun. And for the first time, the choice was not just difficult, it was everything. That night in Kasinga did not bring rest, it brought noise. Not the kind you hear outside, but the kind that lives inside your chest. Amelia lay awake, staring into the darkness, her hand resting gently over her stomach. Her mind replayed everything: Steve's voice, her mother's warning, her friend's caution, Cindy's fear, Caleb's hunger for a better life. Each voice pulled her in a different direction. Finish it. Walk away. Be careful. Choose. She turned to her side, her eyes filling again. Why is it always me? She whispered. The question wasn't loud, but it was heavy, because for the first time, she felt it clearly. She had always been the one choosing for everyone else, sacrificing, carrying, fixing. But now, no one was choosing for her, and somehow, that felt lonelier than anything she had ever faced. Morning came slowly. Amelia stepped outside and found Madame Judith already seated, quietly peeling cassava. The same calm, the same strength. For a moment, Amelia just stood there, watching her. Then she walked forward and sat down beside her. Mama, she said softly. Madame Judith didn't look up immediately. I knew you didn't sleep, she replied. Amelia gave a faint, tired smile. I need to talk to you again, she said. Now her mother looked at her, carefully. Amelia took a deep breath. Then she spoke. I told Cindy and Caleb everything. Madame Judith's expression didn't change, but her hand slowed. And? She asked quietly. Amelia hesitated, because saying it out loud made it more real. Cindy thinks I should cooperate with Steve, she said slowly. She said she doesn't want me to lose my life or everything, trying to stop this. A long pause followed. And Caleb. Amelia's voice broke slightly. He said I should finish it. Madame Judith stopped completely now. Her hands rested still. He said he's tired of being poor. Amelia continued, her tears beginning to fall again. He said, I should complete the ritual so we can all be rich forever. Silence. Deep, painful. Madame Judith closed her eyes briefly, not in shock, but in something deeper, disappointment. My children, she whispered. Amelia wiped her tears. I don't understand them, Mama. Her voice trembled. I did everything for them, everything. Madame Judith turned to her slowly, and this time there was no softness in her voice, only truth. Pain changes people, she said. Amelia looked at her. And so does fear, her mother added. The words settled heavily. They are speaking from what they have suffered, Madame Judith continued, but that does not make them right. Amelia nodded slowly, but her eyes were still full of confusion. I don't know what to do, she admitted. Silence stretched between them again. Then Amelia spoke again, this time more carefully, more hesitantly. Mama? Yes? I want to talk to Steve again. Madame Judith's eyes sharpened slightly. Not to go back, Amelia added quickly. Not like before. Then why? Her mother asked. Amelia swallowed. Because, what if there's another way? The words hung in the air. What if what he said isn't the only option? She continued. What if there's something else we can do? Something that doesn't involve losing another child. Her voice carried something new now. Not fear, not confusion, hope. I need to hear everything, she said, all of it. Not just what he was told, but what he believes. Madame Judith studied her carefully. Or maybe, Amelia added quietly, I just need to be sure before I walk away forever. That last sentence changed everything. Because now, This wasn't just about answers, it was about closure. A long silence followed. Then Madame Judith sighed deeply. "You still love him," she said. Amelia didn't deny it. "Yes," she whispered. Her mother nodded slowly. "Then you will not rest until your heart understands what your mind already knows." Amelia looked at her, tears forming again. "I'm not going back to him," she said, "but I need to face him. One more time." Madame Judith was quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke. "If you go," she said slowly, "you go with your eyes open." Amelia nodded. "You do not go alone," her mother added. That made Amelia pause. "And you do not trust words without truth behind them." Another nod, stronger this time. And most importantly, Madame Judith's voice softened, but remained firm. "You protect that child." Amelia's hand moved instinctively to her stomach. "I will," she said. For the first time since everything began, her voice did not shake, because something inside her had shifted. She was no longer the girl reacting to everything. She was becoming someone else, someone who would face the truth, even if it broke her. That afternoon, Amelia sat alone again, her phone in her hand, her heart steady, but heavy. She stared at Steve's name. This time, she wasn't afraid to call, because this time, she wasn't going back blindly. She was going to face the truth, and whatever waited on the other side of that truth would decide everything. She pressed the call button. The line began to ring, and somewhere far away, Steve picked up. "Amelia," his voice again, but this time it didn't shake her. "I want to see you," she said. Silence. Then, "When?" he asked quickly. "Soon," she replied. "But this time, we talk about everything." "I'm ready," he said. Amelia closed her eyes for a brief moment. "I hope so," she whispered, because deep down, she knew something. This meeting would not be like the last one. This time, she was not coming to listen. She was coming to decide. Amelia chose a quiet place for the meeting. Not a cafe this time, not somewhere crowded. A quiet corner just outside Masaka, where the noise of the town faded into distance and only the weight of truth remained. Steve was already there when she arrived, waiting, restless. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Amelia broke the silence. "I need to hear it again," she said, her voice steady, but her eyes searching. Steve looked at her carefully, almost as if measuring how much she could handle. "There is no other way, Amelia," he said quietly. The words landed heavily. "No prayer, no escape, no shortcut," he continued. "What was started has to be completed." Amelia's heart tightened. "What if we refuse?" she asked. Steve didn't hesitate this time. "Then everything collapses." Silence. "Not just the wealth," he added. "Everything." Amelia shook her head slowly. "No, there must be something else." Steve stepped closer, his voice softer now, but darker. "I tried to find another way," he said. "You think I wanted this?" His eyes locked into hers. "But every path leads back to the same thing." Amelia's breathing became uneven. "4 children," he whispered. "We've already lost 2. Her body stiffened. "Do you think that's a coincidence?" he added. Before Amelia could respond, her phone rang. Sharp, urgent, out of place. She frowned and picked it up quickly. "Hello?" It was Charity, her voice shaking, panicked. "Amelia, Mama is not okay." Amelia stood up immediately. "What happened?" "She just collapsed," Charity cried. "She's not breathing well. We're taking her to the hospital. Please come." The call ended. For a moment, Amelia couldn't move. Then everything hit at once. "No," she whispered. Steve was already beside her. "What happened?" My mother. Her voice broke. She's dying. There was no more conversation. They rushed. The journey to the hospital felt longer than anything Amelia had ever experienced. Every second dragged. Every breath felt too slow. By the time they arrived at the hospital in Masaka, Amelia's heart was already breaking. She ran, through corridors, past nurses, past strangers, until she saw her, Madame Judith, lying on the bed, oxygen tubes fixed to her face, her chest rising weakly, her body still. Amelia froze. Just hours ago, they were sitting together, talking, breathing. Now, this. No, Amelia whispered, stepping closer. Her knees weakened. Mama, she cried softly, her voice breaking completely. She held her hand, cold, weak. Tears poured uncontrollably. You were fine, she whispered. You were just fine. Machines beeped slowly. Beside the bed, each sound, a reminder, time was slipping. Behind her, Steve stood quietly, watching. Then slowly, he stepped forward. I'm sorry, he said. Amelia didn't turn. I didn't want it to happen like this, he continued. That made her freeze. What do you mean? She asked slowly. Silence. Then, you already know, Steve said. Amelia turned sharply, her eyes filled with fear. No, she whispered. Steve looked at her, not cold, not cruel, but certain. This is what happens when we delay, he said quietly. Her heart dropped. No, she repeated, shaking her head. We are running out of time, Amelia, he continued. Tears streamed down her face. Stop, she said weakly. This is the only way, he added. Her body trembled. You have to choose. The words echoed in her ears. Choose. Her eyes moved between her mother, barely breathing, her stomach, carrying life, Steve, standing there with truth she could no longer deny, and the life she had built, the wealth, the future, everything, all at once. Her chest tightened, her mind spun. This wasn't a choice, it was a trap. How can you ask me this? She cried. Steve's voice broke slightly. Because I don't want to lose you too. Amelia shook her head violently. This is wrong, she cried. And yet it's real, he replied. Silence. Only the sound of machines. Weak breathing. Time slipping. Amelia looked at her mother again. Her chest rose slowly, painfully. She remembered everything. The sacrifices, the strength, the love. I can't lose her, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I can't. Steve stepped closer. Then you know what to do. Her heart shattered, because deep down, she did. Tears fell harder, faster, endlessly. I hate this, she whispered. I know, Steve replied. A long pause. Then Amelia closed her eyes and made the hardest decision of her life. I'll do it, she said. The words came out broken, but they were real. Steve exhaled slowly, not relief, something else, finality. That night, Amelia didn't sleep. She sat beside her mother, holding her hand, watching every breath. Forgive me, she whispered quietly, because deep inside, she knew this choice would change everything. The next morning, Steve came for her. No words were needed. She stood, weak, empty, resolved, and together they left. Back to Lukaya, the place where it all began, the place where everything would end, all begin again. As they arrived, Amelia looked ahead, her heart no longer confused, only heavy. Because now, she wasn't fighting the truth anymore. She was walking straight into it. The road to Lukaya felt longer than it had ever been. Not because of distance, but because this time, Amelia knew exactly where she was going and what waited for her there. She didn't speak during the journey, didn't ask questions, didn't look at Steve. Her hand rested quietly over her stomach, protective, apologetic, afraid. When they arrived, the compound looked the same, calm, orderly, almost welcoming, and just like before, they were waiting. Madame Grace stepped forward first, her face warm, too warm. "Amelia," she said gently, opening her arms. Zara followed with a soft smile. Roman stood quietly behind them. They embraced her like family, like nothing was wrong, like nothing had ever happened. But this time, Amelia didn't feel comfortable. She felt something else. Awareness. Because now, she knew the truth behind their kindness. "We're glad you're back," Zara said softly. Amelia nodded faintly. No words. Because what could she say? That she had come willingly? That she had chosen this? Or that she had been pushed into a corner where every choice felt like loss? That night, the process began again. The same routine, the same silence, the same unspoken understanding between everyone in that house. And the medicine, it came again. Thicker this time, darker, bitter in a way that lingered longer on her tongue. "Drink," Madame Grace said softly. Amelia stared at it for a moment. Last time, she didn't know. This time, she did. Her hand trembled slightly as she took it. For a brief second, she hesitated. Then she drank, not because she wanted to, but because she had already made her choice. Days passed, then weeks, then months. And just like before, her body began to weaken. But this time, it was worse, much worse. Her strength drained faster, her movement slowed, her voice became softer, even breathing began to feel heavy. At night, she would lie awake, not from fear of the unknown, but from the weight of knowing, her hand always resting over her stomach. "I'm sorry," she whispered one night. Tears slipped quietly into her hair. Because this time, she couldn't pretend. She knew what was coming, and that knowledge broke her more than anything else. Meanwhile, back in Masaka, something was changing. Madame Judith. Her condition had started improving, slowly at first, then steadily. The oxygen support reduced. Her breathing became stronger. Doctors were surprised. "She's responding well," one of them said. Each passing day, she got better, stronger, alive. But she didn't know why. She didn't know what it was costing. Back in Lukaya, time was running out. The day finally came. The day Amelia had been silently counting down to. The day she feared and expected. The labor began. Her body, already weak, struggled. Pain tore through her, sharp, relentless. She cried out, not just from the physical pain, but from everything behind it. The room felt smaller, heavier. Madame Grace and Zara moved around her, calm, prepared, too prepared. Steve stood at the edge of the room, watching, silent. Amelia's eyes found him. For a brief moment, she searched his face, for doubt, for regret, for something, but all she saw was tension. "Stay with me," she whispered weakly. He nodded, but didn't move closer. The pain intensified. Her body trembled. Her strength faded faster than before. "I can't," she cried softly. "You can," Zara said calmly. But Amelia knew this wasn't about strength. It was about survival, and she was losing it. Her vision blurred. Her breathing became uneven. Then, darkness. She fainted. And just like before, they took her out of the house, into the forest. The same forest, silent, hidden, waiting. The native doctor, Salongo Muwanga, was there, waiting. The ritual continued, and somewhere between that silence and the trees, something was taken, again. Back in Masaka, at that same moment, Madame Judith opened her eyes fully, her breathing steady, her body stronger, alive. The doctors smiled. "She's out of danger," they said. She was discharged shortly after, weak but alive. unaware, unknowing of what had just been paid for her life. Back in Lucaya, Amelia woke up, in her bed, the same ceiling, the same silence. Her body felt empty, not just weak, empty. She didn't move immediately, didn't call out, didn't ask. Because this time, she already knew. Tears rolled slowly down her cheeks, but she didn't wipe them. She just lay there, staring, broken in a way that couldn't be fixed. Because this time, there was no confusion, no doubt, no questions, only truth. And that truth was unbearable. Her hand slowly moved to her stomach, flat again, gone. Her lips trembled, but no sound came out, because even crying felt too small for this kind of pain. Outside, life moved normally. Inside, something in Amelia had changed forever. Not just broken, altered. And somewhere deep within her, a quiet question rose again. But this time, it didn't sound like confusion. It sounded like something else, something darker. How much more is left? They stayed in Lucaya for 1 week. 7 days of silence, 7 days of recovery, 7 days of pretending that something inside Amelia had not been buried. Again. She moved slowly, spoke little, ate because she had to, slept because her body gave up, not because her mind allowed it. Steve stayed close, careful, gentle, almost afraid of saying the wrong thing. But there was something he could not fix, the emptiness. Because this time, Amelia had not lost a child in confusion. She had watched it coming, accepted it, walked into it. And that kind of pain does not leave quietly. After the week passed, they returned to Masaka. The mansion welcomed them back the same way it always did. Clean, silent, perfect. But Amelia no longer saw beauty in it. She saw cost. Every wall, every chair, every moment of comfort felt like it carried a price she could no longer ignore. That evening, Steve arranged money, a lot of it. "Send it home," he said softly. Amelia nodded. She added necessities too: food, clothes, basic things her family would need. Her hands moved automatically, but her heart was somewhere else. When the package arrived in Kasinga, Madame Judith received it quietly. She opened it slowly. Food, new items, money, more than enough. For a moment, she said nothing. She just stared. Then her hands began to tremble. "No," she whispered. She didn't need anyone to explain. She didn't need proof. A mother knows. And in that moment, she understood everything. Her daughter had gone back. Her daughter had chosen. And her life had been paid for. Madame Judith sank to the ground, the money still in her hands. And then she cried. Not softly, not quietly. She cried from a place deeper than words. "My child," she wept. "What have you done?" Her voice broke into the empty space around her, because she knew there was nothing she could do now. The choice had already been made, and the cost had already been paid. Back in Masaka, life continued. But not the same way. Amelia moved through the days like a shadow of herself. She spoke when needed, smiled when expected, but her eyes carried something heavy, something permanent. 1 month passed. Then it happened again. Quietly, naturally, unavoidably. Amelia conceived. She knew before anyone told her. Her body spoke to her. Her heart confirmed it. She stood alone in the room that evening, her hand resting over her stomach once again, not with joy, not with fear, but with something else. Fatigue, deep emotional exhaustion. "I can't do this again," she whispered. Her voice didn't shake, because this time she wasn't confused. She was tired, tired of the waiting, tired of the pain, tired of pretending she didn't know what was coming. That night, when Steve came home, she didn't wait. She didn't let him speak first. "Take me to Lucaya," she said. Steve froze. He looked at her carefully. "You're pregnant?" he asked slowly. Amelia nodded. Silence filled the room. But this time, it was different. Because this time, the request hadn't come from him. It came from her. "I don't want to wait," she continued, her voice calm but heavy. "I don't want to go through all of it again." Slowly. Steve's expression shifted, something between relief and something darker. "You're sure?" he asked. Amelia looked at him, really looked at him. "I'm tired, Steve," she said quietly, and that sentence carried more truth than anything she had ever spoken. Tired of pain, tired of loss, tired of choosing between things that should never be choices. "I just want it to end," she added softly. Steve didn't respond immediately, but inside he understood. This wasn't strength anymore. This was surrender, and somehow that made everything even more dangerous. He nodded slowly. "All right," he said. And just like that, the path was set again. But this time, something had changed, because Amelia was no longer walking into it with fear. She was walking into it empty, and sometimes that is far more dangerous than fear. That night, she lay in bed, her eyes open, her mind quiet, no tears, no questions, just one thought repeating slowly. How many more? Something inside Amelia had gone quiet, not peaceful, not healed, just quiet. After that night, she stopped calling, stopped replying, stopped explaining. Her phone would ring sometimes, Cindy, Caleb, Lena, Kevin, Martha. She would look at the screen, watch the names, and let it ring. Until silence returned. It wasn't anger, it wasn't pride, it was distance. Because she knew, if she heard their voices, if she let herself feel again, she might break, and she couldn't afford to break. Not now. "Just send them money," she told Steve one evening, her voice flat, unmoved. "For upkeep, food, everything they need." Steve nodded. No questions, because he understood. This was no longer about connection. It was survival of a different kind. Time passed quietly. Days became weeks, weeks became months. And just like before, her body began to weaken. But this time, it was worse than anything she had ever experienced. Amelia could barely stand. Walking became a struggle. Even sitting up felt heavy. Her strength drained faster than it returned. There were days she didn't leave the bed. Days where even speaking felt like too much. Madam Grace and Zara stayed close, watching, preparing, because they knew time was near. The day came quietly, no warning, no dramatic moment, just pain, sudden, sharp, unforgiving. Amelia gasped as it hit her. Her body stiffened, her breath caught in her throat. "It's time," Zara said calmly. But Amelia couldn't respond. Her strength was already gone. They helped her up, but her legs failed beneath her. She couldn't walk. They carried her into the room, the same walls, the same silence. But this time, everything felt heavier, because this time she was closer to the edge than ever before. The pain came in waves, stronger, closer, relentless. Amelia cried out, but her voice was weak, barely there. "I can't," she whispered. Her body trembled violently. Her breathing became uneven. Steve stood nearby, but even he looked shaken this time, because this was different. This wasn't controlled. This wasn't planned. This was dangerous. Very dangerous. Her body gave in quickly, too quickly. Her vision blurred. And then darkness. Again. But this time it wasn't just fainting. It felt like slipping away. The ritual continued. The same forest, the same silence, the same unseen exchange. But something went wrong. Amelia's body did not respond the same way. Too weak, too drained, too empty. Back in the house there was tension, urgency, fear, because this time she almost didn't make it back. When Amelia woke up, everything was still, too still. Her eyes opened slowly. The ceiling, the same one, but something felt different. Cold. Her body felt heavy, sticky. She tried to move and felt it. Wetness. She turned her head slightly and froze. Blood everywhere. On the sheets, on her body, around her. Her breath caught. For a moment, she thought she was dying. "I'm alive," she whispered faintly, her voice barely audible. She didn't call out, didn't panic. She just lay there, staring, because even fear felt distant now. Madame Grace entered shortly after. "You're out of danger," she said calmly. Out of danger. The words felt strange, because it didn't feel like safety. It felt like survival by chance. Amelia closed her eyes slowly. Tears slipped down quietly. Not loud, not broken, just empty. Because this time, she hadn't just lost another child. She had almost lost herself. And somewhere deep inside her, a small, fading voice whispered, "How much more can I survive?" But no answer came. Only silence, heavy, endless. They returned to Masaka in silence. No celebration, no relief, no words about what had just happened. The mansion stood exactly the same, bright, imperfect, untouched. But Amelia wasn't the same. She walked through those wide rooms slowly, like a stranger in a life she no longer recognized. A week passed, and then everything changed. Steve rose, not gradually, not quietly, suddenly. His name spread across Masaka like something powerful, something untouchable. People spoke of him with respect, with fear, with admiration. Doors opened before him, voices lowered when he entered. And when his name was mentioned, people bowed to it. He had become exactly what he was promised: powerful, wealthy, unstoppable. But inside that same mansion, there was no peace. Amelia had everything she once dreamed of, everything she once fought for: money, comfort, security, and the man she loved. But peace, she could not find it. Not in the soft bed, not in the quiet rooms, not in Steve's presence, because every moment of comfort carried a memory, every silence carried a voice, every night carried faces she could never forget. She no longer cried loudly. She just sat, thinking, remembering, her hands sometimes resting unconsciously over her stomach, a place that now held nothing. Far away in Kasinga, her siblings lived a different story, a better one. Cindy and Caleb thrived, their homes filled with laughter, their children growing in comfort. They traveled, saw places they once only imagined, countries far beyond Uganda, new experiences, new lives. And for the younger ones, Charity and Calvin, their futures had fully opened. Charity became a doctor, saving lives, wearing the white coat Amelia once dreamed of wearing. Calvin became a pilot, flying across skies Amelia had never touched. They were proud, happy, grateful. Everything Amelia had once wished for them had come true. But no one spoke about how. No one asked what it cost. Back in the city, Lena, Kevin, and Martha had built lives of their own. They married, had children, their homes filled with warmth, with real laughter, with simple joy. Sometimes they spoke about Amelia, quietly, carefully, because even in her success, something about her story never felt right. And then came the final truth. One afternoon, Amelia sat across from a doctor. The room was quiet, professional, but the words that came next were not. "You cannot conceive again," the doctor said gently. Amelia didn't react immediately. She tried to process it. "It's permanent," he added. "Your uterus has been severely damaged." Silence. Deep. Still. Amelia nodded slowly, not shocked, not surprised, just empty. Because deep down she already knew. She walked out of that hospital alone, her steps slow, her mind quiet, and for the first time, the final piece fell into place. It was over. No more pregnancies, no more rituals, no more choices, but also no more hope. Back in Kasinga, Madame Judith sat quietly one evening, her eyes distant, her heart heavy. She was alive, yes, but not at peace, because a mother always knows, and the weight of what her daughter had carried never left her. "I am alive," she whispered once. But at what cost? Her tears came quietly. Because some lives are saved, but never truly restored. In Lukaya, Steve's family lived freely. No fear, no questions. Enjoying everything wealth had brought, just like Amelia's siblings, just like everyone who had benefited. But inside the mansion, the truth was different. Steve had everything: power, wealth, respect. But peace? No. At night, when the world went quiet, he felt it. The same emptiness, the same silence, the same weight Amelia carried, because no matter how much he gained, he knew what it had cost. And no amount of power could erase that. One night, he found Amelia sitting alone, staring into nothing. "You're quiet," he said softly. She didn't look at him. "I'm always quiet now," she replied. He sat beside her. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Two people, in one house, connected by love, and something much darker. "We have everything," Steve said quietly. Amelia finally turned to him, her eyes calm, but distant. "Do we?" she asked. That question hung between them, heavy, unanswered, because deep down they both knew they had gained the world, but lost something they could never get back. And in that silence, the truth finally stood clear. Not all victories bring peace. Time moved forward. It always does. Years passed in quiet succession in Masaka. The world outside continued to celebrate success. Steve's name only grew bigger. His influence spread wider. His wealth became almost untouchable. People told his story with admiration. They called him blessed. They called him favored. They called him a man who made it. But no one told the truth. Inside the mansion, life slowed. Amelia changed in ways no one could see from the outside. She no longer laughed the way she used to. Her smiles became soft, controlled, careful. She spent more time alone, sitting by the window, watching nothing, thinking about everything. Sometimes she would hear children laughing in the distance, and her body would freeze. Her hand would instinctively move to her stomach, then stop halfway, because there was nothing there, nothing left. The doctors had said it clearly. She would never carry life again. And that truth settled into her bones, not loudly, but permanently. One evening, she walked through the large rooms of the mansion slowly, her footsteps echoing. She paused in front of a mirror. For a long moment, she just stared. Then she spoke, softly, almost like a stranger asking a question. Was it worth it? No answer came, because some questions do not have answers. Across the house, Steve sat alone in his office, papers in front of him, phones ringing, people waiting. But his mind wasn't there. It hadn't been for a long time. At night, when the noise of power faded, the silence became louder. He would remember everything, every choice, every step, every loss, and no matter how far he had come, he always arrived at the same place: emptiness. One night, Amelia found him sitting in the dark. She didn't ask why, she already knew. "You're thinking again," she said quietly. Steve let out a faint, tired breath. "I never stopped," he replied. She walked in and sat beside him. For a moment, they just existed. Two people bound together, not just by love, but by everything they had done to keep that love alive. "I thought it would feel different," Steve said after a while. Amelia didn't ask what he meant. I thought, once everything was complete, he continued slowly, we would finally have peace. Amelia looked ahead, her voice calm but heavy. Peace doesn't come from what we took, she said. It comes from what we keep. Steve closed his eyes briefly. And we lost too much, he whispered. Amelia didn't respond, because she knew that was the truth. Outside their world, life flourished. Cindy's child grew beautifully. Caleb built a strong home. Charity saved lives as a doctor. Calvin flew across skies as a pilot. Their lives were full, bright, successful. But sometimes, in quiet moments, they would pause and think of Amelia, not the rich Amelia, but the one who once carried everything for them. And a question would rise in their hearts, one they never dared to say out loud. What did she lose, so we could gain? Back in Kasinga, Madame Judith aged quietly. She lived, yes, but peace never fully returned to her heart. She prayed often, not for wealth, not for comfort, but for her daughter, because even from a distance she could feel it. Amelia was alive, but she was not free. Years later, on a quiet evening, Amelia stood outside the mansion, the sky painted in soft gold. Steve joined her. Neither spoke at first. Then Amelia said something unexpected. If I had the chance to go back, Steve turned to her slowly. I would still choose my family, she continued. He swallowed hard. But, she added, her voice softer now, I would choose myself too. That sentence hung in the air, because that was the truth they had learned too late. Love should not demand destruction. Sacrifice should not erase a person, and no blessing should come at the cost of your soul. Steve stepped closer. Do you regret us? He asked quietly. Amelia looked at him, not with anger, not with blame, but with a deep, quiet sadness. No, she said, and she meant it. Because I loved you, she added, a pause. Still do. Steve's eyes softened. But I regret what we became, she finished. Silence followed, because there was nothing to argue, nothing to deny, only the truth. They remained together, not because everything was perfect, but because they had walked through something no one else could understand. And leaving would not erase it. It would only leave them alone with it. So they stayed. Two people, bound by love, bound by loss, bound by choices that could never be undone. And in the end, the world saw their success. But only they carried their truth. Yes, they became rich. Yes, their families lived better lives. Yes, everything they once dreamed of came true. But they lost their children, they lost their peace, they lost parts of themselves they could never reclaim. And that is the truth people don't always see. Not every success is a blessing, not every sacrifice is worth it, and not every love should be kept at any cost. Amelia's vow was fulfilled. She changed her family's story. But in doing so, she rewrote her own. And that story will live with her forever.